Hello and happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to another Top 5. Jason and I are bringing you our very first Top 5 Part 2 because the first one was a big hit and people were like, hey, I want to do that. I want to do that. So we got a new panel. Jason and I will not be going over our picks since we already did that in Part 1. So if you want to see that, go watch that previous stream. But we got a new panel of guests. Couple guys have been on my channel before, a couple new guys, but we'll go ahead and bring them on in. Shred has been on for open mic before. Hello, Shred.
Yo, how's it going?
Good to see you. And the other three are all from the Achievement Hunting 101 community that I got really connected with. And as I mentioned in the first one, that really got me plugged into Metroidvanias. So we got the founder of Achievement Hunting 101, Corey, also known as Rocker Dude, who has also been on open mic before.
Yes. Hello, how's it going?
Hey, and I don't know if he still does, but at one point he held the record, or not, I guess the leaderboard for most played games on the Metroidvania board on Xbox. Although I think someone surpassed you.
At one time, that person may or may not be coming up.
We also have Icefire. What's up, Icefire? Glad you could join us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be here.
And then right behind, so the other guy, Skeptical Mario, who was on the first stream, and this guy are like neck and neck for the top of the Metroidvania boards. This is Jay Huns. What's up?
Hello.
So he was having some technical difficulty beforehand, so he's just going to have to do it from his phone, but we'll make do. I'm glad you guys could all make it, and we can have this fun panel and hear what your guys' favorite Metroidvanias are.
Also, I was the one who took top played games from Rocker Dude.
That's right. And you're in number 2 for TA score, is that right?
I'm in number 1 or number 2 for like all 6 boards that I track, and I'm in number 15,000 for completion percentage because I have unobtainables.
Bummer. So, yeah, we've got quite a panel of Metroidvania enthusiasts, so we're going to go ahead and get right on into it.
And then before we get on into it, though,
yes.
I will say, so I do have our list from the first episode, so people obviously go watch that one so you can see everybody's take on it, but it's going to be kind of nice to see where our top 5 from episode 1 ranks with these top 4. Also, we're going to add these into our list to kind of, filter lists to make it more the top 5 that's going to be. Because, again, there might be a part 3 later on in the future. Because, again, if this is a category that people love, and right now it is a category that people love, we want to filter this to make it the exact list that it should be. But right now, for what our top 5 is, we have Hollow Knight at 5, Metroid Prime at 4, Ori and the Blind Forest at 3. Or sorry, we have a tie. I'm sorry. Prime at 5, Ori Blind Forest 4, Symphony Night at 3, Will o' the Wisp at 2, and Super Metroid at 1. So that is our list as we sit. But again, we are going to take the list that is going to be coming today, add that to that, and see what we are going to have.
Thank you for bringing that up because I forgot to go and review that and pull up those notes. So thank you for that. So to kind of follow the same format we did on the first one, want to go around with each of you guys and kind of give us your background on the genre. What got you into it? What was the first one you played? So Shred, we'll start with you.
All right. So to me, the first game that got me into Metroidvanias was Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. And the thing about that one was that I received it as a Christmas gift next to, I think Medal of Honor was the other game. And I played Medal of Honor, was never really into first-person shooters, but Metroid, for some reason, when I would see it without knowing what it was, I only knew it from Smash Brothers. And it never really appealed to me. It looked really it never seemed like my style. But eventually I got around to playing it because, like I said, when I was a kid, I played what I had. And I got obsessed with it. Like, it blew my mind. So I've just kind of been obsessed with Metroid ever since, and that just kind of pulled me into that formula, that style of progression. Because something about it just is so satisfying. Gives you that, all the exploration, everything just kind of gives you that sense of helplessness, but at the same time, control over how you experience your own game at the same time. If that makes sense. It's like seems like 2 contradictory things at play here, but it combined, they make sense once you actually play these games. And just ever since that's just been like something that I look for, even in games that are not exactly that formula. I kind of think like, oh man, they could have done something here and it would have made it perfect. And always kind of bringing it back to turning the game into a Metroidvania style sort of thing. So I didn't even know that was its own category until maybe like about a year ago. So tells you how much I know about games.
Well, cool. All right. We'll keep going with the clockwise. Jay Huns, what got you into the genre?
Well, I've been a little gamer since I was about 4, much to my parents' dismay. And the first game I remember with any Metroidvania elements is not going to be a game any of you were thinking of. When I was 6, the game Commander Keen Marooned on Mars came out.
I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it.
It's basically a platformer, but unlike a lot of platformers back then, you finish the first level, you're presented with an overworld. You can go on to the next level, or you can go a different path and go pick up your pogo stick upgrade, which is then a persistent movement upgrade that lets you access different higher paths throughout the entire game. And you're supposed to do that first, but it's this first Metroidvania element I can really remember, and that game came out when I was 6, so it's been a long time.
Commander Keen was always the game that when you had a computer class, that as soon as you were done doing anything, you were trying to beg your teacher if they were cool enough to just play a game, and that's usually what was on there.
We play games anyway.
All right. Yeah, I didn't even know about Commander Keen until it showed up as a skin in Doom Eternal, and I was like, "What the heck is Commander Keen?" So
he is an ancestor of Doom guy, I believe, canonically.
Yeah, he's got. I know he's got like a yellow helmet, and does he have like the soda cans on the helmet, or is that? Am I getting two things mixed
The
up?
soda cans.
That is him, but not in the first game.
Okay.
He does have soda cans in some game.
Gotcha. All right.
I knew what you're talking about.
Cool. All right, and Rocker Dude, what got you into the genre?
So, as you mentioned, I am a part of this achievement hunting 101 community. So, we started a podcast. I guess it's been getting close to 6 years ago, and in
Episode 300 will be in a few weeks.
Yeah. So in 2019, I believe it was, we decided we were going to do Year of the Vayner. And so every month, I don't know if we did it the way that you kind of run it now, but it was just kind of like everybody's going to play Metroidvanias throughout the year. And my goal was to complete one a month. I had kind of talked about, a couple here and there as a community. We've played some before. And so really that like kickstarted my love for it. But looking back, it kind of started with Shadow Complex. So not that retro, but in the Xbox 360 arcade days, I would play and get all of those Summer of Arcade games that were my favorite type of games. And Shadow Complex weaseled its way in there, and without even knowing what a Metroidvania was, I played it, loved it, did the speed run and all of that. So kind of since then.
All right, more recent, but still, that's an excellent game. That was on my list of top fives. So, and Icefire, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, not as far back as Jay over there, but for me, it was on the Nintendo. And I heard a couple of you talking about that the last episode. I think a couple mentioned the original Metroid. For me, it was actually Blaster Master, which has come back around, right? And they have Blaster Master 0 and 2 and 3 now, right? So again, similar to what Shred said, I wouldn't have known back then, that was a Vayner type game. But when you think back to it, it has all the elements. It's got an overworld. You can't get into certain areas without having different abilities and things like that. So never beat it when I was a kid. It was way too hard. Nowadays, though, played the 0 game recently and was able to beat it there. And my love for the genre has been on and off ever since. But obviously, in the past couple of years, I've really been getting back into it with the Year of the Vayner that you've been running, stuff like that. It's fun to kind of compete with people and talk about the games that we all like. So
cool.
I didn't have me Icefire because Blaster Master was originally released 2 years before the first Commander Keen.
So there you go.
I don't know when you played it year-wise, but release-wise, it was first.
I probably would have been. Yeah, I mean, I was 6 when I first got the Nintendo, so I was born in '81, so probably about the same.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even know. I never even heard of Blaster Master Zero until they released it recently on Xbox, and I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, this looks really retro." And then someone's like, "Yeah, because it came out in like the '80s or '90s." Like, oh, I had no idea. I thought it was like the thing where they make a game now, but they make it look all
Like the
retro.
indie games now.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
no, it came out way back in the
Like if
day.
you play the second game, a lot of people like the second game the most because they took, what was good about the first one, but then, upgraded it and made it more recent for the genre. So, but yeah, playing the first one for me, definitely brought back that nostalgia from when I was little. So,
Cool. And yeah, so as one of you guys mentioned, I run a year of the Metroidvania contest. We're in year 3 for our Xbox Achievement Hunting 101 community. And this guy, Icefire, has been on fire this month. There's no way anyone's beating him. He's been like nonstop. It seems like he's beating a Metroidvania every other day. So this guy's been on a roll this month.
I told Jay he's got to watch out. Don't stay comfortable up top. So,
So, all right, before we get into our next one, just want to got a couple people in chat. Want to say hi to Mr. Cage. I've not seen you before. Yo, welcome. Hope you enjoy it. We are ranking our favorite Metroidvania games. And Shreds in the chat. And Zengramarsh Games. Hello. Welcome as well. I've not seen you before. And a friend of mine, Tim's Talk. What's up, Tim's? Good to see you, buddy. And all right, and then the last thing we're going to go over before we get into our ranking is I just want to hear from each of you. What was the most recent Metroidvania you played? So let's go in reverse. Icefire, what you just beat like yesterday?
So what I recently just played, actually I think you mentioned it as one of your games, was Journey to the Savage Planet. Fantastic 3D Metroidvania. Honestly, to me, probably if you're going to make an argument for a 3D Metroidvania, that is the game, because you get areas that are, blocked off by abilities. You have the only thing it's missing, which is really crazy, is a map, honestly, as I was playing through. Really frustrating, but you can kind of get to where it's not that large of a map. You can kind of figure out where you're going. So yeah, been playing that, and yeah, that was a lot of fun to get back into.
I love that game. Cool. All right, Corey, what did you play most recently?
So I need to put this out there. I'm a serial diver when it comes to these types of games. So
and for those that don't know, diving means getting one achievement in a game and then moving on to something else just to get it on your gamer card.
Yeah, and so I most recently I have this game called Fearmonium on there, and which
East
came
Asia
out
soft, right?
Ratalaika.
Ratalaika, okay.
But it's not. I mean, it's probably not too hard, but it's also not your 10-minute completion. It is extremely dark as far as like the content that's there, but it seems like it's going to be a solid Metroidvania. So not many people have played it. 76 people on TA.
Yeah, I think did was it EOJ who was going through all their favorite Ratalaikas a few weeks ago? Did one of them bring that game up?
I mean, I wouldn't say I have a lot of favorite Ratalaikas.
Whoever I heard talk about it said for a Ratalaika, it's pretty good.
Could have been Waka or somebody like that.
Waka is one of 24 completion, so probably him.
That's probably who it was.
I haven't played that particular one yet.
So, all right, Jay Huns, what did you play most recently?
I'm currently playing through Leica Age Through Blood, which is an absolutely insane, like, hybrid game between a Metroidvania and Trials, I guess, or Excitebike. Like, you're driving a motorcycle the whole time, and if you land on your head, you die instantly, and any shot from an enemy kills you instantly, and it's incredibly dark and grim and about the horrors of war. It's an insane game. It's actually in one of my lists today. It's not going to be top 5, but I'm going to spoil one of my honorable mentions because I think this is an absolutely psycho game that you should at least if you're a fan of the genre. It's nuts.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I think Big L talked about that on the podcast a couple weeks ago on AH 101.
It's
so yeah,
incredibly hard and frustrating too, if that's your thing.
And it probably wasn't Big L that talked about it. So
It definitely was not.
Oh, it was Koosh then. It was Koosh news.
I could see
Okay.
Kush, yeah.
Yeah, it was Koosh, not Big L. All right, and Shred, what was the most recent Metroidvania you played?
So the most recent one was an actual like Metroid game because I was going through the Prime series again. So it's Metroid Prime 3. And I wanted to go through each of them again because the Prime 1 Remastered came out on the Switch. So I'm like, okay, I have to jump back on that. I haven't played these in years.
Yeah.
And how I told you the last time we talked, I like to replay them every so often after a couple years pass because it's like they feel kind of fresh, but you're not lost. So it's worth it to me. So I replayed that. So the last one, playing them in order, Metroid Prime 3. And there's a lot of things that even though I've beaten that game maybe 4 or 5 times, like I still, when you stop playing it for years, there's gonna be details that you just completely forget about, and it just kind of puts you at the edge of your seat again, trying to figure it out and trying to not die. And I'm gonna have to play that again because since I have new files for each of them, one thing that frustrates me that you can't play them on hard mode right off the bat. You have to play them on normal to unlock hard. So I'm gonna go back to it maybe in like a year or something. And just play them on hard. Hopefully I still have that save file. But yeah, Prime 3 was the last one I played, and I've kind of taken a break from it for now.
Yeah, I definitely need to play through the Prime games again. I think the last time I played through them was probably around 2016, so it's been a while.
Yeah, it's definitely worth revisiting. To me at least, I love them so.
Yeah, I think on the first, part 1, I was talking about that Prime was probably what really got me into the genre. So I love those games. So, all right, cool. Well, we are going to get into our top 5s now. Does anyone want to go first? All right, I guess I'll pick someone.
I'll start off.
All right, cool.
Because the thing is that once I actually had a pick, and I was trying to pick games other than Metroid games, because like I told you earlier, it's like, oh, I'm going to get bullied because most of them are Metroid. That's like kind of what I'm obsessed with. But so I remember this one that I played so many years ago when I would go to a friend's house. It was Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, not Symphony.
Okay.
That one. So that game is one that I'm a little upset that I never got to own. But I would play it whenever I would go to my friend's house because I was still kind of going to tech school, wasn't really making a whole lot of my own money at the time. But I would go to my buddy's house. He had it, and the way we would play this, not at all the way that you would expect, to play these sorts of games. But he would play for a little bit. I would watch him. He'd die a bunch of times, and he'd be like, "All right, here, just your turn. I need to take a break." So he handed me the controller, and then I would play for a little while. And meanwhile, we're over here doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Theory and stuff like that. but that's kind of like what we would do on the weekends. Like I would come over, we would play whatever game he wanted to show me that he had, and we would take turns with it. And Bloodstained was one of the ones that we both actually ended up getting really into, along with like other games like Shovel Knight and some other ones. But I remember specifically with Bloodstained is that basically like it really blew me away, just the insane amounts of powers that you can acquire and upgrade, and how you kind of actually build up your character as opposed to it just every new ability just kind of stacks on the way that it does in like the normal Metroid games. So like in this sense was something that I found really fascinating about this, and just the way that when I saw how it has the map in the corner, it looks pretty much exactly the way that it does on a 2D Metroid game and everything. It's like, okay, they knew what they were doing. They had this style in mind. So to me, that's one that I got pretty obsessed with, but I never owned.
Okay.
And now that I've actually been trying to remember as much of that game as I can. Like I've just really been getting the edge. I'm like, okay, that's gonna be another game that I'm gonna have to push up my priority in the backlog because like I have to play through this. This is one game that the reason it did not place higher on the list is because I never finished it. And because, like I said, I never played through the entire thing on my own. It was like I would watch him play for a little while, and then he'd pass me the controller. I would play for a little while, and so on and so forth. Never really sat down like on my own and like really get into and do like my own build and all that stuff. But despite that, this was a game that really blew my mind. I thought it was really fascinating. Even just the enemies that show up, like you're fighting these giant cats that just like they look like house cats but giant, just stuff like that, or like a floating dog head, or but then also just like all the demons and the floating haunted paintings and all the like all the flavor and just the like. I'm a real sucker for like the horror theme, like just kind of seeing like the monsters are not just they're not just like random enemies that you have to like shoot or jump on. Like they actually look like creatures, like something that you would find horrifying. Like to me, I find it really like I can really put myself like and kind of daydream about like, oh man, like if I imagine this setting, imagine them making a movie out of this, something like that. So that's kind of what I got for that one.
Yeah, good stuff. That's a pretty good game. I completed the Xbox version, and there's also a Windows version. So I'm gonna be playing that.
Really?
What used to be on Game Pass, it left, and it recently just came back a few weeks ago. So if anyone wants to play it, it is on Game Pass now.
We heard that it may be getting new achievements too.
Today. Yeah, there might
What
be
was
new
I got the
achievements.
itch,
Sorry,
so
Jay,
I might.
But yeah,
I mean,
it
I know
was.
it's.
Oh,
I
go
say I
ahead.
know it's only number 5, but I'm glad somebody said Bloodstained because I know when we did our first episode, I was waiting for someone to have it on their list, and I don't believe anybody did. And I mean, it's a very good
Really?
game. So
I feel like
yeah,
it's a solid game. It's a great example of the genre too, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it doesn't have a lot of like extras or anything like that, but it's solid to play through the whole way through. And I think Shred, if you like what you played of it so far, you're gonna enjoy the rest of playing it. So you definitely should pick it up. So
Oh yeah, I bet because I know those types of games, especially the ones where you build up your character. Like
yeah,
it kind of it gave me like a weird. I don't want to say Diablo entire, but like Diablo, God of War type of vibe. How you invest points into certain weapons and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, we
So
were saying. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just to, like add to what you were saying, right? We were saying in the chat like about this that one of the great things about the game is you can build out your character pretty much in any way. Whatever weapon you like, you can build into it. So I agree with you. It's got that kind of Diablo like feel.
right.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that I missed. I don't know if it was from skipping dialogue or what, but there was a lot of things I missed in the beginning of the game, and I made the game harder on myself than I needed to. So when I play through it again, I know I have all that knowledge now, where it'll make the second time I play it way easier.
You gotta read.
I don't know if I didn't read it or it just wasn't in the game, so I'll figure that out next time. But I know what one of the main things was the food, because the food will give you new abilities, and I didn't know that, and I was saving it for when I needed health. And every time you eat a new piece of food item, it gives you like a new stat boost, and I didn't know that.
I think
So I
they
was
tell
always
you it
saving
once. Yeah, they tell you it once, and then that's like it. So yeah, if you didn't pick it up, yeah, and it's not a common element in any other game, really.
Right. So that was a big thing. It's like, oh, I've been playing on hard mode this whole time, and I need to invest my skill points by eating this food. It was crowdfunded by Igarashi, who's the guy who created Symphony of the Night. So it's basically the spiritual successor to Symphony of the Night, for anyone who doesn't know.
That would make a lot of sense, actually. And I never played Symphony of the Night, like I mentioned earlier, and like you were saying, like it's a much older version. So keeping that in mind, I might have to go back and give it a shot just for the spirit of it,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Worth it. Worth trying it just to see how it is. So
yeah.
I think everything in the Castlevania Advance collection is also an Igarashi game.
Okay. I have not played those yet, but they are in my backlog, so I'm looking forward to playing them. I heard they're really good. So, cool. All right. Jans, why don't you hit us with your number 5?
Sure. My number 5 is a kind of a niche, lesser-known game. It's Batbarian Testament of the Primordials.
Okay. Heard good things from our community.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's got a lot of unique elements. Like some games are really bright, some games are really dark and you can't see anything. Batbarian uses the idea of light as a resource. Like you have to specifically position your familiar that creates light to be able to see certain elements of the environment and to attack. It's got a really unique combat system where you don't do any damage, only your familiar does damage, and you gotta throw things to tell it where to go and tell it what to do. It's the combat system is very unlike almost all other Metroidvanias, and the fact that it uses light in such a unique way makes it kind of different to explore than a lot of other games as well. It's also got a fantastic story twist, which I will not spoil because it's great. It's got some hard achievements. It's got some easy achievements. It's very funny as well. Like it's got some genuinely humorous moments. There's funny achievements. There's just funny moments throughout. I really enjoyed it, and I think it got a lot less exposure than it deserved given its quality.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned it, Jay. I had it in my honorable mentions in case nobody did, because exactly like you said, it does feel like it's a game that didn't get the exposure it should have. Like it's got a retro look to it, but it's a fun game to play. And yeah, if you're into the genre, it's kind of got that like kind of puzzle platformer kind of feel to it, like you were saying, Jay. I think where you're solving puzzles with your familiar using the light abilities and stuff like that. And yeah, it's fun, and it is funny too. Like there's some pretty genuinely funny moments in the game, so I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna say before it came out, I was kind of skeptical on the whole light and dark thing. I was like, I don't know if that's gonna play well, but from what I've heard from all of our community, it sounds like it's a really good game. So I'm looking forward to playing it.
Not only does it play well, but there's also an accessibility option, I believe, for the light stuff. If you genuinely have eye issues that make it hard to play, like you can play it without the light and dark stuff. It's just not as interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
And
I
you
was
still
gonna
use
say that
the-
it reminds
Go
me a
ahead,
lot of what's the game with what's it like plague something with the rats?
Oh,
Where it's like the
Plague Tale?
swarms of rat. Yeah, so that I think that's it. Is that kind of like what you're sort of describing? How you use like the fire to like you got to go through puzzles like that, manipulating the animals and stuff, but like, instead you're doing with the familiar combat, or am I thinking of just way off on that?
I haven't actually played Plague Tale, but it sounds similar.
In Plague
Yeah,
Tale, you have to light lanterns and stuff, and when it creates light, then it creates pathways through the rats. So is it kind of like that in Batbarian, or you have to
a
like
little bit. Yeah, I mean, like
bit.
yeah, you're throwing fruit and stuff like that, right? So you're familiar as a bat that kind of follows you around, and basically you throw fruit out, and you can get it to either stick to things or, you basically get the bat to kind of go wherever you're throwing your item, right? And so that lights up, lamps in a similar way, right? It lights up your path and opens up new areas, things like that. So.
Mm.
Can
So-
you travel through the darkness, or if you touch darkness, do you instantly die?
You can travel
No,
through it.
You
Yeah.
can travel through it, but there are areas where the light is much more important than others.
Okay, cool. And we got Mental Knight hopping in saying accessibility. Now you're talking my language. What's up, Mental Knight? Good to see you, buddy. Cool. Yeah. Glad that I got mentioned because I have not played it yet, so it didn't make it into my list, but I'm definitely looking forward to playing it. So cool. Icefire, what's your number 5?
Okay. All right. My number 5. This one was a tough one. It was battling out with another game, which I left on my honorable mentions, but ended up picking one that I don't think others will pick. Iconoclast
Okay.
is a game that I played. Honestly, best way to describe it is it's got great Metroidvania feels, but it also reminded me almost kind of like games in the Super NES area, like where you had these like action RPG type games with a good story to them. So a lot of times you'll hear Metroidvania games don't have a story, right? Because it doesn't really work with your ability to try to travel everywhere and get to where you want to go, right? So
Right.
but Iconoclast is one of those games that actually mixes it in pretty well. Like, I mean, you're going to get directed a little bit more than other Metroidvanias to continue your story. But it's a great story. It's got lots of twists and turns. The combat was fun. It just was a really memorable game for me. And so definitely a game that, again, if you like that kind of SNES, action RPG type game with a, quirky story, and again, if you like the Metroidvania genre, it kind of blends both of those very well. So definitely recommend
There's
it.
a lot of puzzle platformer elements. I feel
Yes.
like with the wrench.
Yes.
I
Yes.
really enjoyed Iconoclast as well, and like there's that one cutscene that was one of the most
Yeah.
surprising cutscenes I've ever seen.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
I think that's why it stuck with me, was because there's twists and turns in the stories, but it actually kind of got pretty deep, and a little bit like melancholy at times, but it was in a good way. Like they did a good job with the story. So
At times.
Cool.
it was pretty brutal at times. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, from what I've heard from all our Vayner group, that most people have talked highly of that game, so I'm looking forward to playing that one as well. Cool. All right, and Rocker Dude, what was your number 5?
I could not let this list go on without mentioning this game. I'm pretty sure nobody here has ever played it. Some of you have not even heard of it. It's called Super Epic: The Entertainment War.
Okay.
My
And
backlog.
I have it. I haven't played it yet.
it is it's not the greatest game in the world, but it is one of my favorite Metroidvania games. It features a raccoon riding a llama, and it just is a classic Metroidvania feel, and it has very, very funny humor in it. The combat is really nice because it has kind of that Guacamelee combat where you have an up attack, a down attack, left and right, and then you can chain them together and stuff like that. There is references to other Metroid games and then other games in general in there. And then there is this one really unique feature that I think it makes it underrated. It has a QR codes around the game that if you scan, you can play games on your phone to earn in-game currency to upgrade stuff better. You don't have to do that. It just makes it faster.
That's cool.
And they're just parody games. Like I think there was a fake clicker game that you played for like 10 minutes or something, and you'd get whatever coins it gives you for the game. And I don't know, I thought it was really great. And that's really only half the game. They kind of side load to the very back a roguelike mode where you have to go through the map and it changes and your weapons are random and stuff like that. So it kind of really pads the game a bit, but the base Metroidvania part of the game is really fun for me. So I loved it.
Cool. Awesome.
I think it was a pretty decent Metroidvania with a very bad, boring roguelite tacked on, and I wish they hadn't done that. I would have been so much happier without it.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
All right. And we got Colta Carl, who is Shred's good buddy. Look at this fake gamer on the panel. What's up, Carl? Good to see you, buddy.
Listen, Adam, I promised I wouldn't say bad words, so you get a pass this time.
Cool. All right. Well, that's a good list. Yeah, I don't think I'm not sure if any of those got mentioned on part 1, other than maybe Bloodstained in a honorable mention.
Not even Bloodstained. None of these were mentioned on episode 1.
Cool. Good stuff. That's what I was hoping for with another panel. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get to our number 4s, starting with let's go with Corey.
So this could be a little bit of recency bias, but I did play and complete all the achievements. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown just came out in January.
Mario talked about it.
Yeah, you guys mentioned it on the last one, and this was just a really surprising game. It was like I knew it was coming out, but I've never played Prince of Persia. Somebody said it was Metroidvania, and I liked the look of it, so I hopped in with low expectations, and it just kind of blew them out of the water. It's just I'm not a masochist where I'm going to grind and play these games. The Batbarian that was just mentioned, I put 21 hours into that game and I'm nowhere near the completion. These other guys are 60 plus hours. Like I can't do it. But for some reason, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown sucked me in enough to make me go through that whole entire map like 6 times to clean it up and things like that. And if a game can do that, it's a good game in my book for me. So yeah, the newest Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
Cool, good pick. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to playing that. Did you Ubisoft Plus that game?
I did indeed.
What does that mean?
So
Gamer, I
Ubisoft,
don't know what that means.
Ubisoft Plus basically Ubisoft has their own subscription service to all their games, like Game Pass or EA Play, called Ubisoft
Okay.
Plus. So you can subscribe to it for a month and get access to all their games without actually
Oh,
owning
okay. I
them.
see.
About
So-
$18 for 1 month. So, versus $60 for the game. If you're going to play in a month and complete it, it's pretty worth it. Plus,
From-
They're gonna
Gotcha.
stretch out releasing the extra content over like 3 months.
yeah, of course they're going to do that, right? Because it is Ubisoft. So,
Yeah, as an achievement hunter,
That's funny.
that is our things that we weigh. Now there's a
Yes.
roadmap.
There's
If
a
they add
roadmap.
achievements, that's another month down the line. At
Yep.
that point, I'd probably wait to make sure they're done. But yeah,
Yeah, because I heard in that roadmap, I think there's a story DLC as one of the things that they're planning for it. So, being a Ubisoft game, I'm sure it won't be very long till it goes on sale. So, I'll probably be picking it up and buying it from how good I'm hearing.
it's on sale right
It's
now.
on
to be
sale.
honest.
Yeah,
This is-
it is. It's on sale for $30 right now. It
That's
is
right.
probably worth $30. I mean, we
Yeah.
all paid what, $18 for the month. You're not paying much more, and you get to keep the game. I'd say it's worth the $30. So
Granted, you have to take a grain of salt for me, but I mean, I picked up the game for my Switch for $20, and I got a physical copy. But again, I get discounts and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, yes, it's always on sale. It's a Ubisoft.
Cool.
It's worth noting.
That's the game
too,
that I was
it's-
seeing some hate for on at first, because like it didn't seem to have anything to do with like the previous Prince of Persia, because that's a game that like I didn't play the first one, but the second and third one. So I had pretty fond memories of those, and this new one it didn't make sense, right? Like it looked like it wasn't even the same guy. It looked like it was completely different. So
It's not the same person. It's not the prince. So a lot of the Prince of Persia purists were not happy with the direction that they took it. But everyone who played it said it played really well.
yeah, so
Yeah,
I've got it on
I
my
heard a lot
list.
of people
I've got it
are
on my
saying
list
that too.
Yeah, it's worth giving a look, and I'll talk more about it too when I get to my part of it. But yeah,
Sweet.
And here's the thing for me, it kind of is a blessing. I could give two craps about story most of the time. I will skip cutscenes. I'm here for the gameplay, and if the platforming's good, that is 2 thumbs up. So
I remember you saying that when you were in the chat on part 1.
yeah, I couldn't even tell you what happened in the game, so, but it was fun.
Cool.
It's Ubisoft. We never know. We don't know what's out of the story. We just see Ubisoft steal Nintendo ideas in a way, and then they just put a different idea on it, and they just go.
So
That's a hot take.
I mean,
all right. Jay Huns, what was your number 4?
My number 4 is another pretty indie title. It's Grime. And there are an absolute ton of Souls-like Metroidvanias out there now. Like half the Metroidvanias on the market probably have at least Souls-like elements in them. Grime is like a purist Souls-like Metroidvania. I think it's the best one of them that's out there.
Nice.
It's better than Blasphemous for me. I haven't played Blasphemous 2 yet. Maybe that's better. But of all of the ones I've played, I think I enjoyed Grime the most. It's weird in the classic Dark Souls way. You're a weird dude with a black hole for a head, and when you parry enemies at low health, you absorb them into your head and eat their abilities and gain them for yourself as passives, and you can level up in multiple different ways, different stat lines. Weapons have different stat requirements. It's got all of the pieces. It's got weird lore, very, very, very weird lore. Let me be clear. The story goes some strange places. And it feels like Dark Souls, and it also feels like a Metroidvania in the best possible way. I had a great time with it.
Cool. Yeah, I've been looking forward to getting to that one. I remember on the Metroidvania Reddit, like a couple of years ago, I was talking about how there's a lack of because so many of the Metroidvanias are all pixel art, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just there's so many of them. Like when there's one that has good graphics like Shadow Complex, that always gives the leg up in my book. And someone's like, dude, you got to try Grime. And it wasn't even on Xbox at the time. So when they announced that it was coming to Xbox, I'm like, ooh, I'm looking forward to playing that. And they've done a really good job of post-release content too. They've had like 3 or 4 free DLCs for that game. So
Yeah, they have released their last one, so it's fully complete now. They're fully working on Grime 2, but the post-launch support was excellent.
You hear
They
that,
added
Play
new,
Ultimate?
they added New Game Plus. They added extra content. They added a platforming like Path of Pain style challenge.
Oh
Great.
no.
I know, right? Yeah.
Having
Oh, I loved
flashbacks.
it.
You know, one thing so this is a game that I've been wanting to play, and I keep wanting to get to it. I will say one thing about this game. So in games with like parry mechanics, I am terrible with my reflexes apparently, at least when it comes to parrying. I cannot parry for the life of me. So usually my tactic is go in, try to smash the heck out of a boss and hope that that works, and maybe dodging a little bit, and smash some more. Grime has one of the most forgiving windows in terms of like parrying because it's a core mechanic of the game. And I
Yeah.
actually found parrying to be enjoyable for the first time ever in a game. So that was pretty incredible for me, just because they made it more interesting and something that I could get into. So
Nice.
No, that's one of the things that I was saying. How you mentioned that it's the combination of Metroidvania and Souls, which kind of I know the last time we were talking, how I was talking about how I felt so close with that's something what that health point could have been. Where there's so
Right.
many elements like, oh, if they had tweaked this thing here, it could have been, Metroidvania, because they use things like to get to new areas, instead of having to get a new power, you need to get like a key card or something. So it kind of like, oh, so close, right? But now that you're mentioning this, Grime with a G or with a C?
Grime, Grime.
Yeah.
Grime, okay. So that now that you're mentioning that and you're saying that it has that fusion, because that's kind of been on my mind because of that other game. So now you got me. You really piqued my interest about that one now, because I've been kind of looking for that now that it's kind of been on my mind. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, cool. All right, Shred, why don't you give us your number 4?
My number 4, we're going back to Metroid again. It's Metroid Zero Mission.
Zero Mission.
And Zero Mission, to me, that was the first 2D Metroid that I played.
Okay.
So the first one was like I told you, what got me into it was Prime 2, and then from there, when I started exploring the rest of the series, it was Zero Mission, because just the amount of like exploration was like unlike anything I had played up until that point. And this is when I started kind of getting used to the idea of like like the way that the maps are laid out, how to get that feel for looking for secret passages and things like that. Stuff that I developed a lot of habits from playing Zero Mission that translate onto almost every other game that I play that shouldn't, where like I shouldn't really have to do that, but I do it anyway. Where I have to like explore every corner, and if something looks a little off colored, I have to try to blow it up and stuff like that. But I think that's also true for like even a lot of Zelda games and stuff like that. But
I was just gonna say our last episode, that Zelda and Metroid, especially if you played the NES versions, anytime you see something
Yeah.
off colored, anything like that, you're like, do I have a bomb? Do I need to bump into this? There's something behind that wall. I guarantee there's something there.
which
Okay,
makes
know
you really crazy when you start playing games later on and they don't have that stuff.
Yep.
And you're going around every little inch of the room trying to blow things up, trying to find that one spot. So
and that kind of developed a certain way that I play games like that, where besides if I'm watching somebody else play a game, like if I'm watching somebody else's stream, they're playing through something, to me it looks like, oh my god, you're missing all these things. Oh, there's probably, and then I have to tell myself there's probably nothing there. I'm just used to playing that way, where I have to like scan everything, but it doesn't. The thing is that Zero Mission, the way that it did that, did not feel like a chore, because like I've seen some games where they want you to be so thorough that it feels like it's just taking forever and it feels like a chore, whereas with Zero Mission it felt much more rewarding, because even just the environment looked like something quest worthy. Like it looked like something that you like. To me, it always piqued my curiosity. Just the designs, when you see an enemy that looks a lot like the previous enemy, but there's something different about it, like it's an off color, right? So you kind of want to see before you approach it. I mean, I'm saying the first time I played it, before I approached it, I was like, what does this guy do different? You know, like, does this guy have more health, or does he have a different pattern? Does he have a ranged attack? Those are things that kind of race through my mind whenever I encountered new enemies. But especially the ones, like I said, it's an enemy that you've already encountered, but it's a different color. So I know it's going to be a variant of something I've already fought. So that's the sort of stuff that's, to this day, kind of makes me take pause when I encounter something like that in a game. And so with Zero Mission, it's basically already with the knowledge that it's the remake of like the original Metroid, which I did get around to playing, and I couldn't make myself do it. I'm just like, I love Metroid and all, but not enough to play the original when all the rest of them exist, you know?
Yeah, Zero Mission's the way to play the original for sure.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
yeah.
getting the same experience plus more, right? So,
Right, exactly.
Quality of
Now,
life improvements.
yeah.
yeah, definitely a lot of that being able to diagonally and all that stuff. It's huge, but also, also at the time, the fact that it was portable as opposed to console and all that stuff, like, also helped me. Like, it was actually very useful for me to have time to play it and all that. But the one thing that I didn't like, and I've heard actually my buddy JM as well said this when he got to the part, like the post game, where you have, and then that last, like, I didn't like it. I didn't like the additional content on that.
I actually dropped the game there myself. You know, for
Oh,
whatever
really?
reason, I don't know if it was. It's a little bit harder, right? You die a little bit faster without giving too much away, right? Like, but yeah, there was something about that extra content at the time I played it, which was years ago. But yeah, like,
Mhm.
yeah, I had the same experience. I don't know what it was about that post game. So
Yeah. It's been so
Now,
long since
it
I
does
played
have
it,
a
I don't even
redeeming
remember what
quality,
you're talking
though.
about.
it's
What's
different.
the redeeming quality?
Yeah, so the redeeming quality to me was the fact that, like, once you got through the high ten, like the part that felt like a chore, where like you can't really do anything and you're completely helpless until you get your stuff back, and actually being able to break out of there, and you were like this ultra powerful entity now, and actually being able to go back and continue exploring with like your space jump, screw attack, and everything. Like, to me, that was really satisfying. And to me, like, it almost made me feel like, oh, all right, you know what, it was worth it. Like, I thought it was a good payoff, but at the same time, I feel like they could have done better on that. Because I understand the intent of them trying to make it feel like you're supposed to be helpless, you're supposed to be scared and run away every time you get spotted and stuff like that. But I feel like the way that they put it together was too much. It felt like too much of a chore. And one of the things that I don't like about, like, the some people like this in challenging games, like, what I don't like is repetition, like, where you have to do the same thing over and over and over again, because at a certain point it feels like it's not being respectful to my time. But so Zero Mission, it wasn't that bad, but you kind of start having that feeling where it's just like, oh my god, dude, come on, like, like, so but yeah, it's like once you jump that hurdle, it was great. Although I was not a huge fan of that last boss fight. I felt like it was kind of rushed. I don't know if that's true, or if I just didn't like it. But that definitely, though, as being my introduction to, like, the two-dimensional Metroids, that was great. That I was very happy with that, and I would definitely play it again, 100%.
Cool, awesome. When you were talking about, like, how you like the exploration aspects, not a Metroidvania, but a game that you may be interested in is Tunic. It's very Zelda-like.
Oh, okay, it's the one with the little fox, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen that. I have not played it, but I have seen it a little bit. Interesting. I think even Adam recommended it to me as well a little while back. So yeah, I'll have to see that one.
Adjacent to the genre, everyone who loves this genre will probably love Tunic if they like puzzles anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a fantastic puzzle game.
Sweet. And
Yeah,
Tunic
I
is
like that a lot in games for sure.
Tunic is
Like, I don't
also
want
on
it to be
Game Pass.
nothing but combat.
Yeah, and Tunic is on Game Pass for anyone who's wondering. So
I don't know how long it'll stay because it's been on a while. So
it's been on a while, maybe leaving soon. So, but yeah, cool, good pick. All right, and then that leaves us with our last number 4 with Icefire.
Yeah, so I'm gonna mention a game that I think Mario mentioned last time. I don't know if anybody ranked it because I didn't watch all the way through. I didn't want to spoil myself.
How dare you?
Yeah,
Was
right.
I turn on Noctis, right? So
Okay.
I know Mario talked a bit about it, right? This game is hardcore platformer, right? So anybody that hears about it, if you don't like platforming, I wouldn't bother. Like it's got a lot of platforming in it. What I really liked about this game was it's one of those games that you just start out in one area and you feel like, oh, okay, this is what the game's going to be like. And then you go to the next area and it's slightly different. And then you go to the next area and it just keeps going. Right. And it has one of the largest maps from any Vayner that I've played.
It's so big.
And yeah, it's just such a big map. And but I mean, there are so many mechanics that they throw at you at different times, and some of them work for some people, some of them don't. I don't want to give any away, but Jay, I know like the Cosmos, right? Is an area everybody always talks about as when you get to there, people are going to be like, what the heck is going on? How am I
It's
controlling
love
my
it or
character?
hate it for sure.
Yeah. So, but I mean, again, there's other games that have that element that, I made me really like that. So it is a game that you can just keep exploring and it has so much depth to it. It has a lot of storytelling in the world as you go through. Um, it is again very tough game. I don't know. It's one of those games where, right, as achievement hunters, it has a lot of achievements. I doubt that I will ever complete all of them.
It's a
Uh,
hard one.
it is, but like I've enjoyed it. Like I know you mentioned the last time, right? It's got an achievement for fighting every boss without getting hit or like at all.
Yep.
That is really, really not my area. I probably won't get into those that much,
And
but
it's
you
got
know,
tough combat too, right?
it does.
Yeah.
It does. Thankfully, the cool thing is it's one of those games where they have these gemstones, right? Which is, there's several games that have this kind of a type of way of empowering your character where you have I think up to 6 gemstones, 3 of blue, 2 of the purple, and 1 red, something like that, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Where you can equip different gemstones to kind of enhance your character. So one
Just kind of
gemstone
build
might
them the way
give
you
you
want.
plus 25% damage. There's a gemstone that gives you an extra jump, things like that. So you can build it out for your situation. And I found that really powerful as you go into different boss fights or different areas to help me explore, and not find the game as challenging as it might be. But there is, I mean, don't get me wrong, that it was one of those games that almost made me want to break my controller. There are platforming areas in that game that you will play again and again and again. So Shred, not your thing if you don't like repetition, because this is one of those games where repetition, you get an inch further each time. I find something enjoyable about that, but you have to be a little bit of a masochist, to kind of really, do that type of thing. Because there were times where I had to put the game down and just step away,
Makes
but
sense.
overall, it really was a, thoroughly enjoyable game. And you don't have to, play that part that I'm talking, there's, you don't have to play all of the hardest platforming areas to get through the game itself. So, you can get through the core of the game. There is, again, if you're not as into achievements as some of us are, there is they added a mode afterwards that is like a little bit easier mode. So I don't think it changes any of the combat, but it adds more platforms so that, if you're having a harder time with the platforming piece, it kind of levels that out a little bit for people. So,
Okay, interesting.
but
Did
yeah,
not know that.
definitely was a memorable game. We'll probably continue to chip away at it as I can, but yeah, it was really enjoyable.
And it's got a
I'm gonna-
really, really pretty art style too.
It does. So yeah, speaking of games that have like a great art style, again, I'm similar to you, right? Like after a while you get a little tired of the pixel art, and the old retro styled games. This one has some beautiful art, tied to it. And honestly, from when you start the game to kind of like where the game goes with some of the different areas, you will be very surprised at the range of colors that the game has, because it looks like it's going to be a very dark game, but some of the areas of the map have very bright colors, and it really makes it just more vibrant and again just different as you're going through the world. It makes you feel like you're exploring a world as opposed to just one dark, entire map. So
There's a lot of visual distinctness between the
Yes.
biomes, which is something not every game has.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
just want to chime in and say this, as an achievement hunter, this game has the hardest Metroidvania achievement list on Xbox, period.
Absolutely agree.
Definitely
You
seems
can
like it from
get
what I
through the game fine. There are only 3 people on the whole site who have completed every achievement, and I'm not one of them yet. And it's driven me crazy over $100. And I love the game though. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna spoil it and say that this one's coming up later on for me.
Okay, cool. All right, well, that will finish off our number 3s. So,
Number 4s.
sorry, number 4s. Right, we're going
Just
into
help
number
me.
3s. Thank you. I'm kind of going reverse order. So, all right, well, that'll lead us into number 3s, is what I meant to say.
He's just testing us.
So, Jayhan, does that happen to be your number 3? If you want.
It does not. It's
Okay.
even later.
All right. Well, either way, let's hear what your number 3 is.
My number 3 is a 3D game. It's Batman Arkham Asylum.
Oh,
This is not only the very first Metroidvania I played on the Xbox platform, but it also has what I consider still to be probably the best combat system in any Metroidvania ever. It's just so fluid. There's counters, there's dodges, there's different moves to deal with different types of enemy attacks. There's different types of enemy attacks that you have to react differently to because they go through different methods that you have for dealing with things. It's just absolutely fluid, and once you get it, it feels awesome. And
you feel like Batman.
yeah, there's a ton of secrets hidden in the game. They're not hidden. There's literally Riddler clues left for every one of them, telling you some obscure hint for it, or not so obscure in some cases. Some of them are a lot easier than others. But
I know a lot of people give the Riddler trophies a lot of crap, but I actually enjoyed collecting them.
a lot of them were great. There are a few that are kind of ridiculous, and you probably have to look up. But yeah, the combat system's great. The secrets are great. The exploration is great. There's multiple ability gates that you can do different stuff to get to different places. It feels like a Metroidvania. It's got a good map. It's got all the elements, and it's for how long ago it was released, it still looks pretty good, and it feels like Batman. You will feel like Batman playing that game, and that's great.
Yeah, it's aged very well.
How many times have you played this game?
I was just gonna ask you that.
I have 2 100% completions on it. I haven't played the Japanese stack or the original like Xbox 360 Game of the Year stack. So I could do it a few more times if I wanted.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm spacing it out.
I've done 3 of them, and I plan to do the 2 PC ones, but I don't ever plan to do the Japanese one.
Yeah, I love that game except for the combat arenas. That is the one time that I don't feel like Batman because I get my butt kicked in those. And they've held me back.
I'm not great at the combat either.
So I have to go back to those at some point. I feel like, again, like you said, Jay, I'd say like, it's not just like one of the best. I think people have said this before, it's not just one of the best combats in a Metroidvania. It's one of the best combat systems in gaming, just especially when it came out. The feeling, I think they called it some sort of like free flow or whatever it was combat, right? But your ability to go from just one enemy to the next, right? Just by pushing, but you don't have to like, be really specific about it. It kind of helps guide you.
You can't just mash
towards
though.
it. You
You have to
can't,
be-
right? And
you have
that's
to be a
where my
little
problem is.
calculated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where my problem is once you start getting the guys in there with the shock batons and you're jumping over every, I just hit one too many buttons. And as soon as you hit one too many buttons in those combat arenas, you're done. You have to
you got
be
to keep
pretty
your streak
perfect.
up.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like, I agree. The combat in that game is fantastic. I think probably most people have played the game by now, but if you haven't and you like Batman, you absolutely should. It's just a fantastic game all around.
Yeah.
That whole series is really good, I would say.
Great series, all 4 of them, and I know Origins
Yes.
gets crapped on a lot, but I think it's still a great game.
It has one of the best stories, I would say. Like, it's got
Great-
some good
Great
twists.
boss fights too.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, a lot of games have basically kind of ripped Arkham's combat and put it in their own game, so it's been very
They
inspirational for that
haven't done it
combat
as
style.
well, most of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Batman did it
It's hard to
first,
match
and most of the games that have copied it haven't done it as good as Batman has. And my good buddy Vanquish hopping in the chat saying that his wife's making him take a shot every time I say the word Metroidvania. Nice knowing you all.
Also, he just said it there again, so that's another one. So yeah.
Please
2
don't
shots if he says Vayners.
please don't dive alcohol poisoning on my part. You're a good buddy.
You don't know how hard that will be on him.
So if you were doing that as like anytime anybody says it on this stream, yeah, for
you'd be
sure,
in trouble.
you're gonna die. Corey, what's your number 3?
All right. So I'm picking a 3D game as well. And it took me a long time to come around to 3D Vayners. I'm all for 2D, has to have a map, but 3D, it took me a couple games. And this one was one of them, Superland. This game, I go for
I like that.
gameplay and visuals. Like those are the top 2 priorities for me. And this game looks incredible. It is super bright and colorful. All of the areas are just fun and playful. Again, there's more humor in this game. And there's not a ton of combat, which is fine by me because I don't need that. The exploration, and it's weird. This game took me a while to get into. I remember playing it and going back to it like probably years at that point later before it actually sunk in that, I'm having fun with this game until I had to find the rest of the chests. But otherwise, it was really fun. And exploration is a big thing for me as I get those powers to explore better and faster and in creative ways. It just makes the game more fun, and Superland did that for me.
Yeah, when I often talk about how there's a surprising lack of 3D Metroidvanias, I always mention Journey to the Savage Planet and Superland.
Yeah.
That's a game. If you like secrets, by the way, that is a game
everywhere
with a lot of secrets. The guy who made that game and developed the map for it thought of all these clever places where you can kind of just break out from like where you're usually traveling. And if you're trying to sequence break or basically get out of the map, there's so many secrets once you start doing that, which is pretty cool at first. But yeah, like Rocker said here, right? Like after a while, it does drag on for a little bit. I think that was the only thing I didn't like about the game. If you're trying to do everything in it, like by the time I was trying to get the last chest, I'm like, all right, I could have been done with this a couple hours ago. But
ready to be done.
Right.
Before that,
Got to do it.
great.
Now it's personal when you start trying to get the one
right.
thing.
Yeah, you can't leave it at like 95%. So. But yeah, good game. I agree.
I'm right there with you, Rocker, on the combat. I think they could have actually like toned it out entirely, and I would have liked it even more because it gets a little heavy on the combat at the end of the game, and it's not like built to be a combat game. It seems more like they kind of shoehorned it in. So I think they could have left it out, and it would have been a little bit better of a game. But I enjoyed it. So it used to be on Game Pass. It's not anymore. However, the sequel, Superland 6 Inches Under, is still on Game Pass.
I'm going to point out, I don't even think that one's even a sequel. I think it's supposed to be like a mid-game creation, and I think they're coming out with a Superland 2 or a Superland World or something like that.
Super World,
so,
yeah.
More is that what it is? Yeah, I wasn't sure. Yeah. So yeah, there is going to be like a larger game that they're creating. The Superland 6 inches under, I think, is like to tide us over until they.
It started out as a DLC and then it got.
Oh, that's what it was.
Oh,
Thanks,
okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I
So
will
anyone
say
who
one
go-
negative thing about Superland, it has the worst map of all time. There was none in the original release, and people complain. So what the developer did in a post-release update was add a map, but it's literally a map on the wall of your house. You have to
that's
go to your
right.
house to see it, and you can't access it at any other time. It was
Wow.
like
That's almost
a
worse.
middle finger to the
I'd be
people
mad.
who were complaining.
Yeah, if I had to give it a negative, that would be the negative.
Yeah, it's like, hey, can you give us a map? Yeah, shut up. Here's your map on the wall of your
Exactly.
house. Gee, thanks. We really appreciate it. But yeah, for anyone who isn't familiar with Superland, basically you play a little tiny guy and you're in just like the backyard of a person's house. It's basically like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and you have like a kind of like a portal gun that you use to solve puzzles and stuff. And it's a great exploration Metroidvania. So if you like 3D Metroidvanias, I definitely recommend it.
Okay, so now the title that you mentioned, 6 inches under, actually makes a lot more sense now that you explain that it's.
Yeah,
I was like, huh?
Little itty bitty guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be like a little toy character or something like that. Like it's
Mhm.
almost like a, I don't know, gingerbread cookie shaped character that you play as, basically.
It looks almost like
You know?
Red Gumby.
Yeah,
Kind
yeah,
of,
Huh.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good explanation.
And I think his name is like Red Guy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny.
And
Canonically, God in Superland is the child who built the play area that is the world.
that's
Yep.
right.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, and my buddy Paul Hadouken saying if Salt and Sanctuary, which is his favorite, isn't on anyone's list, then it's pointless as Zelda without Wind Waker.
Sorry, bud. Shred your only hope for that one.
Yeah, as I've told Paul many times that it's not a Metroidvania on the Xbox leaderboard, so none of us are probably going to have played it. But I do have it on my wish list.
Yeah, tell them to port it.
It's on Xbox. It's
Well,
just
if you
not
want to find out if it's on
classified.
my list,
It's
you're gonna
on-
have to wait.
It's on
I-
Xbox. It's just not a Metroidvania.
Oh, that's
I
right,
own
yeah.
it.
Is
I've
it?
dived
Is that
it.
the one that has a sequel to? And the sequels.
Salt
yeah,
and
that's what it
Sacrifice
is.
is the sequel, which
Yeah.
is not on Xbox.
Yeah.
But I do have Salt and Sanctuary on my wish list. It's been out since like 2017 and it's never been on sale.
Mm.
And it goes
Oh,
on
wow.
sale, I will buy it. I've told Paul that every time he mentions it. I will buy it as soon as it goes on sale, despite it not being a Metroidvania. Maybe we can change that, but I know how picky the genre team is.
It challenges the genre, he says.
We do have to do that sometimes and
Yeah.
open.
We do. Yeah.
We have to challenge the forum.
Sometimes we have to
genre
fight
team.
to remove
Yeah,
a game.
I
Yeah.
see what you mean. Okay.
There's sometimes there
so
a
it's
game
like a
will,
living document.
Yeah. So yeah, they have a, TA has this genre team that basically has to make choices based on, clips or like, what the
challenge.
games, like look like ahead of time, what they might get tagged as elsewhere on Steam or something. And yeah, there's a lot of times where they may not tag them as, we might think, or, others might think who like the genre. So we have to challenge it. And
Or we'll challenge it and they'll say no and it gets rejected.
yeah.
So is that kind of what the whole thing is with like Dead Cells? People are like, "Oh no, it's not," and then people
Yeah.
consider it, or that's kind of the whole thing.
And
How-
Carl, Death's Door is another one that is not a Metroidvania.
Yeah, it's how the system works on True Achievements is like the first 2 weeks a game is out, whoever's played it gets to vote on it, and so it may not get the genre. And like if it's a really small game that like no one's played, then whatever the people vote on gets set. And sometimes no one will vote on it. Like there's a game that was originally developed to be a Metroidvania, and then they changed paths in development, and it was no longer Metroidvania, but it came out and they put it as Metroidvania. We had to fight them to get it removed because it wasn't a Metroidvania at all, but no one had played it. So it's like, well, you guys haven't played it. How do you know? It's like, you just have to go look at the trailer and see it's not a Metroidvania, but
Yeah,
sometimes they need people to actually play it to have proof of it. So
Makes sense. All right.
Also, just with that, Nerdy Neo said right there, Vanquish, I hope you're not in the chat anymore because that was about 7 times he just said it right there. So if you are with us still, you might not be with us
I forgot
anymore.
about that.
oh, that's why you said Death's Doors, because
he may no longer be there anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, Carl called out, and again, that's another one that I think often gets mentioned as genre adjacent, right, Jay? Like it's very close to it, like but again, like Corey, I think you said, you played it. It's a great game, like just not really considered a Metroidvania, I believe.
It's more along the lines of Tunic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a few hours of Death's Door, and it doesn't seem like a Metroidvania to me. But yeah, Vanquish, if you're still there, let us know you're okay and you're not dead yet. And that's right. Paul was just playing Salt and Sanctuary yesterday.
Okay.
And tell me it's not a Metroidvania. Yeah.
I've been able to lurk a little bit when I see him on X. I'm just
He was playing it on his stream. What was that,
Yeah.
Jay?
I said, tell the TA team, Paul. Don't tell us.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's go with Icefire. What's your number 3?
Sure. So speaking of games that we actually had to challenge, and I don't think it was too much of a challenge, but and somebody else already used this game. So Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown is my third game on on my list. That was actually only listed as a platformer when they put it on True Achievements. We all put in a challenge. That one pretty easily got moved over because it's obviously a Metroidvania game.
Yeah,
It took
but
longer than it should have, though.
it was about a month
Yeah.
after it came out till they finally
It took a
added it.
while. Yeah, it took a while. So, but I think Rocker, were you the one that had it on your list earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. So similar to what you said, right? Like the game just has great action, great movement in the game. I was really surprised by it as well. So Shred. So for me, I had played some of the older Prince of Persia games too, like part of the trilogy. When this one first came out, I kind of felt that way too. I wasn't sure how I
Yeah.
felt about, a Prince of, and I was like, what is this? It's not the same guy. Once you play the game though, and you really get it actually, so I actually do follow this story, unlike Corey over here. And I really liked the story in this one. I thought it had some pretty cool twists. They did a really good job with it. This was a good example of a triple A studio actually, putting in effort into this genre that you don't really see that often. There's not a lot of the larger studios that are willing to create games of a Metroidvania style like this. And so it really surprised me. There's a lot of polish on it. Some of the movement in the game is the abilities you get are different, than you would usually get in other Vayners. You get your basics in there, but they have some other cool ones that you wouldn't normally see.
And it's definitely outside Ubisoft's wheelhouse, so it's nice to see them take a chance on something.
It is,
No,
yeah.
not exactly, because the studio that created it created
Well,
Rayman
yeah,
Legends, right?
it did,
So,
yeah. So I mean, when I heard that they were the ones that were making it, that's where I started to get excited, right? Because like, hey, if
sure.
you've played Rayman Legends or Rayman Origins, both fantastic games, right? And so you knew they had the platforming chops to at least put it together. It was just a question of could they, build out a map, and it really was. It was a great map, very distinct areas again. Honestly, again, I don't want to spoil for people who haven't played it, but there are some really cool areas in that game. One in particular, I think I've seen a lot of reviews call out, where the way they present the area is just really cool with how it looks and how everything is staying in place, let's just say. It's just a really cool area of the game. And just in general, like again, like Corey said, the whole game just kept me going. I just kept wanting to explore more, find more, and continue playing till I got through the whole thing. So it's absolutely up there. It's a recent game that I played, but I expect that to stay near the top of my list for a long time to come.
Yeah, Mario had it on his list, so it's good to hear that so many of you guys are mentioning it.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been hearing that game come up a lot, even from you guys, other people online. I've heard even friends in real life too, and that game keeps coming up. So I'm getting that itch too because I love the other Prince of Persia games I played, and like you said, it's not the same, but just the fact that there's even a loose connection and like that feeling of you come in expecting less and you end up getting so much more, kind of like what you said, that it just blew the
There's
expectations out of the water.
pieces, yeah, there's pieces that tie to it. I mean, it's again, like you said, it's very loose, right, without spoiling too much, but uh it does have the whole, again, like Sands of Time tied in a little bit in some ways with how they execute on it. And again, I can't say too much more without spoiling some of the pieces of
Right.
the game that are better to see as you're exploring it, but
Right.
I would definitely, if you're at all, if it at all sounds interesting, give it a
Mhm.
shot because it's a fun game. And you,
Yeah.
I would say what's great about this game for people too who don't get like games that are as challenging and stuff like that is the accessibility options in this game are fantastic too. So if you're not as much into platforming, you can tone down like I think they either like regen you like right where you fell or something like that. So they allow you to tone down the combat or tone down or even again make it harder if you want. So there's a lot of
Right.
flexibility with that in the game. So it pretty much you can cater it to what you like. So
Right.
And
It
if
does
you
have
like it
the classic
masochistic,
Prince of Persia mechanic with the sands.
what's that?
I'm saying does have that classic Prince of Persia mechanic with the
So
sands.
not in the way that you would think, but
Okay.
it ties in with the story. And again,
Oh, I see.
I can't
Okay.
say. And again, the
It makes
one
sense.
area that I'm talking about has something like that in it. And I know Jay, you're probably and Corey, like you guys probably know what area I'm talking about. It's one of the
oh,
most
absolutely.
talked about areas in the game. It's just really cool, how they tie in that freezing, unfreezing ability. And again, I can't say much more, Shred, without ruining the game for you. So,
Gotcha. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
no, it's something you want other people to experience for themselves for sure.
Right.
I mean,
Gotcha.
there's also a pretty basic ability in the game that's also time based in some way.
Yes.
So,
hmm
like it has Persia, it has princes, it has time. It's got all the
Yeah.
abilities you need.
It's all in there, just not in the same way. Yeah.
But does have Godsmack.
It does not have Godsmack, unfortunately.
Just mute the game and then just play in the background, and
There
then you have
you
that
go,
too.
There you go.
Yeah, and it does have a demo. I played it the demo on stream one night. I think Corey was watching me play it, and so what little I played of it, it was smooth and fluid, and the combat was great. I was just bummed that I got to that first boss, and then I thought I was going to fight the boss, then the demo ends. No, you get to the boss, and then the demo ends. I was like, oh, come on!
Oh, that's dirty.
So,
You gotta leave them wanting more, man.
yep, they did a good job of that.
Yeah, I mean, I it would be cool to face the boss in the demo. I'm the same way, but like, no, like, you know how to get to the boss now. Now, buy the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a game that's lacking content, though. I mean, they could have totally let you fight that first boss, and you still would have plenty of the game left.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I get it. They're definitely leaving you wanting more. For sure.
My only
Right.
complaint with the demo, outside of that, was that I didn't get any ability upgrades in the demo, and I felt like you should have at least gotten one.
Yeah. Again, what I liked about it was again, the abilities, are familiar for people who like Metroidvania games, but they all have, either little tweaks to them, or there's some ones that you normally wouldn't get in the genre. So it makes it interesting and it ties in well with the flow of the game. So.
And Paul wants to point out that Salt and Sanctuary does not have any accessibility options. Get good. It's very Dark Souls-esque. So,
Well, if you feel that way, Prince of Persia just added a permadeath mode if you want to do it in one life. So
you want to get nuts?
Wow.
So,
You want to get on some sweaty nonsense? There you go.
all right, and that leaves us with Jay Huns for his number 3.
I did my number 3. It was Arkham.
Sure.
I think is it Shred? I think it's Shred.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, I typed it to the wrong person. I'm an idiot.
I was gonna say, okay, so it's gonna be another Metroid one, and this one is Super Metroid, which when I was trying to think out my list, I thought it was gonna be a little higher up, but there's another one that kind of creeped its way just barely over this one. So Super Metroid's my number 3, and Super Metroid was one that I was genuinely very surprised by how good it is, considering how old it is. This is why when we were having that conversation earlier about Symphony of the Night and how Super Metroid being as old as it is, and I still think it's such an amazing game that I cannot recommend enough to everybody. That's why I figured, like, you know what? The fact that Symphony of the Night is old, it's probably, like, I'm probably still going to enjoy it. But yeah, like, Super Metroid, like, it, despite, I don't know how I could say this. Like, despite being limited to, like, the technology of the time and all that, it feels like you wouldn't even care. Like you could just play that and just like you could just enjoy it because you have all the mobility that you could really expect from a game like that. Yeah, even just the aiming, all the like. There's a couple of things that could be better in terms of like when you select your missiles, and a couple of quality of life improvements where it's like if you were to like have a mod or something to it just to like let you use the extra buttons on a controller for that kind of stuff. But besides that, I mean, who cares? Like you're playing this game is freaking amazing. I got so obsessed with it. I absolutely had to play the hell out of this until I 100%ed it and got all the secret. I have played it multiple times, and then what I tend to do with games that I become obsessed with in this manner is that after I beat it, and if I decide to go back and play it myself again and get like a higher percentage or whatever, eventually it does get to the point where I get that curiosity where it's like, all right, I'm gonna look online and see what else there is, like Easter eggs, things like that. And one of the ones that I was I actually found this on my first try where you gotta save the critters, and that was one that I remember was like a huge deal when I was watching speedruns of this, where like that was part of like the audience had a vote on whether the speedrunners had to save them or not, because obviously that's not a huge deal, but it's still just extra frames or whatever. But seeing a lot of the sequence breaking, and this is true for like all the most games that have some kind of sequence breaking potential to them, like that always gets my attention because I always want to do it. I always want to jump on the sequence breaking. Of course, after like the first time that I beat it the normal way and all that. But for that, like it's one of the things that makes me replay the game, despite it not being like things that are meant to be played over and over again, like roguelites and other games, such as those. But with Super Metroid, by this point, I was already really into Metroid by the time I played Super Metroid for the first time. And this is kind of an extra bias that made the game even better for me, was the fact that I had found a guy, I think I forgot how to pronounce his name, Stemage, I think. What he did was he would play Metroid Metal. And this was around the time that I started getting into metal. And Metroid was actually, because of like how this all lined up, it was like one of the reasons that I got as much into metal as I am now as well. So it all kind of ties together, and they all amplify one another. So the fact that I played Super Metroid and a lot of the music that started coming up in the game, I was like, so that's where that song is from, because I heard the metal version first. And this is where he got it. Oh, that dude did a really good job in making it his own and all that stuff. But it gave me like an extra layer to that experience, because I'm, in the back of my mind when I'm hearing like the Brinstar music, and I'm hearing the metal version of it too, because I'm trying to see, like, I see where he got these notes, where he got all the style and everything. So everything just kind of started blending together in like this thing where I forgot what the word is for it, but where like the product is worth more than the sum of its parts. That was basically my experience. Like you take like all the stuff that I already had from before, like the music, the comments from my friends, all this stuff. Because I had 2 friends that were really into these, and we were just recommending these games to. They recommended this one to me a lot, and I just wanted to talk to them about this game after I played it. And yeah, this was the one game that just, all the boss fights, just how cool, especially Fantoon is one of my favorite ones. Like just the intro where he's got like the blue flames just like in the circle and everything, and like how creepy the lead up to it is. It just everything about that game, up to seeing the boss statue, like the golden statues that like one by one you start taking them out, and that's a game that I just cannot. I like, you're just getting me riled up and I want to play it again now. Like that is one game that I wonder if one day we'll see like how the way they redid what's it called?
Oh, Link's Awakening.
No, the other one, the second one, Samus Returns.
Oh,
they made
Returns.
they made that remake of it where it's like kind of 3D-ish. Like if they do something like that with Super Metroid, like I will. I would be very happy.
if they took like what graphics they used for Dread and they turned that into Super Metroid, that would look very, very
That'd be amazing.
Oh my god, I would be so happy.
Super Metroid
They could
Dread.
take all my monies.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And Paul is saying that he played Super Metroid in 2008 and got a tattoo of Samus in 2009. So he loves
Nice,
it.
nice.
And speaking of Metroid music, you can go check out his channel. He's got some great Metroid music on his channel because he does video game music as well.
It is.
I've listened to some of his metal. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, good stuff. So cool, excellent, good pick. And that wraps it up for our number 3s. So we're on to our number 2s. So, let me. There we go. Okay, I was like, why am I looking at number 1? Had to move them around and they deleted one by accident. So, all right, we are all good. So for starting off with our number 2, Icefire, you want to go?
Sure. I have no idea whether Mario used this one or not. It may be a new one. La Mulana is number 2 on my list. Okay, good.
Ooh.
All right, so I'm glad to add that to our list here. So La Mulana, it is definitely more of an indie game. You know, not as many people outside of, you know, the Metroidvania genre probably have heard of it. Best way to describe La Mulana is it's a very puzzle heavy game, right? So the idea of La Mulana is you go into this dungeon kind of like area, and there are basically messages all over the place. It's one of those types of games too where like there's traps everywhere. You got to kind of watch where you're walking. You know, you got to kind of like a spelunky type, you know, movement around. You got to be careful where you're going. But the big part of everything is just trying to figure out how to get to the next areas of the game. So like there are puzzles throughout the game, and there are puzzles spanning the entire game. Basically, this is one of those games where I remember doing some of this with some of the like the Myst games back when I was a kid or something like that. But like where you just have to take notes about everything in the game, basically. So each screen, what I ended up doing was like there were like multiple levels in the game. Each screen of each level, I would be taking notes and writing all of that down, trying to figure out how that might tie into, you know, me getting into a new area or something like that. It's a really fantastic game. It's a very difficult game. So I would say that it's a type of game where you'd have to be okay with if you're not going to be able to figure out where you're going next, you might have to look up a few things because some of that stuff is very obscure too. But you know, it's always one of those things where you look back at it and you're like, you know, okay, I get how I could have figured this out if I put this and this together. But yeah, it's a game that stuck with me a lot. Because the puzzles in it are just fantastic and a level beyond any other game, you know, in the genre. And the other piece of it was for me that I actually found the game to be very hard at first. And I went through it, you know, and beat the game on normal. It has a hard mode that you have to beat and a speed run that you have to do. And it was just one of those games that after the first run through of it, everything kind of clicked for me. And I love, you know, that feel in a game. So when I went back through and did this hard mode and had to do the speed run, it was fun for me to plan out, you know, like how to get to each part, you know, how to find the quickest path through on my own and get through to the end of the game. And that added a whole new layer for me, you know, in terms of playing the game. So fantastic game. Again, you have to really give it a shot to see if you like it. I'd say it's a little bit niche for, you know, for people, but you know, if you're into puzzles and trying to figure out what to do next, there's nothing that really beats that game, I'd say.
Yeah, I've heard it's the most puzzle heavy game in the genre.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true.
I love that type of stuff too. So
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
puzzle games.
yeah,
I
it's
respect that you have your opinion. I'm a legendary La Mulana hater.
Yep, I do know that you. Yeah, Jay is not a big fan of La Mulana.
No.
I've seen pictures of people's notes on this game. It's like notebooks full of notes to
I
to
might
solve all
still
these
have it
puzzles.
somewhere. I'll have to like, you know,
I still
I'd
have
have to like
my notes.
spoil it, but yeah, it's insane.
Those
was that?
notebooks are what turned me off of the game.
The
Can't
funny
do it.
thing is the game has a system where you can save pieces of dialogue for later, but you only get that ability partway through the game. you can only save 5 pieces of dialogue at a time when there's like maybe 150 that are
it's
like
really,
relevant.
it's not useful.
Really?
Yeah.
You have to write down everything because the actual feature he put in for it is useless.
Yeah.
There's more like a quality of life issue that the game has then in that sense.
I mean, it can be, if you're an old school gamer, like,
You used to notebooks.
back in the day, like
Yeah,
the game I remember is like, is Riven, right? So that was like what the sequel to Myst, I think, right? That was a similar game where I remember going through and, there wasn't walkthroughs and stuff, as commonly back when that came out. So
right.
I had to, similarly, you had to write down notes, to figure out different areas of that game, and tie them back. So, it had a little bit of nostalgia there for me with that too. But yeah, I agree with Jay. The in-game mechanic for, mapping it's useless. Like there's no point in even bothering with it. So
I respect note taking. The problem I had was that it was so puzzly that every word had to be exact in your notes
yeah,
for it to actually like have the clues you needed. So you had to write down every word of dialogue in the game, word for word,
yeah.
to have all the clues you need to actually solve it without going through a walkthrough. I found that
Sorry.
very annoying.
Mental's making me
Hopefully
laugh
it's
because he
simple as-
says you're not selling it.
He's not a fan of puzzle games.
It's a love it or hate it game, and I
It
know
really
a lot of
is.
people love it.
Very
I'm
polarizing.
Yeah, yeah, and I, Jay, you and I have talked about this before. I have no qualms with it. I get, like why people would not like it. It has to be one of those games again. It's love it or hate it. For me, it clicked with me. I honestly, when I started it, never thought I would have felt this way about it, but it's a game that's high up on my list just because it clicks so well. So,
Nice.
still have to
I
play the
totally
sequel.
understand.
I was just going to ask you
Yeah.
if you played 2.
No, I've got it on my list. I started it and then I just couldn't get into it. It's one of those things you have to really be in the mood too for this type of
Yeah,
game.
man,
No.
same.
I
Yeah.
bet.
So
All right. One thing I was just going to mention while Shred was talking about Super Metroid is that Super Metroid was really where I felt the Metroid games kind of came into their own. Since the first one was NES, the second one was Game Boy, Super Nintendo, it was really had the chance to kind of spread its wings. So
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree. I think Metroid 2 is when it got really good, but that's just
that was Jason's number 1 on his list was Metroid 2.
But yes, no, yes,
And I
the
did
Super
like Metroid too. Despite it being like black and white and everything, it's like I was still able to play through it and I enjoyed it. It was just Metroid 1 that I couldn't do.
back in our day, you can only play games in black and white.
you only had 4 AA batteries that you had to spend a lot of money on and not have the full run.
So, Rocker Dude, what was your number 2?
My number 2 is a game that requires no notes, no puzzles really that I can remember. And it is has lots of color though. It's The Messenger. So the time bending Metroidvania where you go between 8 and 16-bit, more super humorous dialogue, and I think it's the right amount of challenge. It's not overbearing, but it's not easy. I've seen people fail at the first boss and throw their controller, but I made it through all the way, and it's very rewarding once you do it.
Yeah, a lot of people have said a lot of good things about it. I actually, even though I completed both stacks while they were on Game Pass, I just bought it the other day because it's on sale for like $5.
Oh yeah, it's a great one, and it was one that I was more than happy to do the stack on, which I don't always do. It has to be good for me to want to do that, and this one is definitely that. And the platforming is top notch.
It's really great. Yeah, it reminds me of the games it's trying to emulate so well. It does a great job.
Yeah, if you were basically to put like the original NES Ninja Gaiden and the original NES Metroid together, you probably get The Messenger.
Yeah. I would say, the ironic thing from this game for me was that I actually liked the first half, which is the non-Metroidvania half of the game more, just because of the humorous parts, like talking with the shopkeeper and stuff like that. that kept me going. And actually, when I got to the Metroidvania part, I actually kind of just fell off it for for whatever reason, because like at that point the story kind of drops out, right? And you're just exploring, and that part of it is great, but for whatever reason it just didn't hook me enough. So I still have to give it a chance and go back to it. So
Yeah,
the
when
DLC is super fun and also super funny.
yes, that it is. I remember when I played it because it had the Metroidvania tag on it and it was on Game Pass. And then I'm playing it for like a few hours. I'm like, this is an action platformer. Why the heck is this a Metroidvania? And then I get to that point and I'm like, oh, now I get it. So yeah, it was cool how they implemented the Metroidvania elements of that game. So
Yeah.
I
I
know
haven't really played games that change genres halfway through. That's kind of weird to me.
it's a unique thing, and it's definitely something people are careful to talk about with this game, because it is a cool little
It's a plot twist. Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
a plot
I
twist.
see.
Yeah. So
Yeah, even talking about it as a genre and you start playing it, it's like I
Yep.
said, you didn't even know it was a Metroidvania, just
Yeah.
knowing that it is as a plot twist.
yeah.
Or a
Right.
plot spoil point of it, essentially.
Yeah.
Shoot, I was just going to say something else about it. But yeah, just that when I'm looking at like the Metroidvania Reddit and stuff, I see this mentioned as a lot of people's in their top favorites.
And it has a banging soundtrack.
It does have great music.
Soundtrack's
I'm
very
a
good.
sucker for good music.
Same.
Yeah, cool. Well,
A
good
couple of the
pick.
tracks make it into their next game, Sea of Stars, as well.
When I found out that Sea of Stars is continuing on the Messenger universe, or actually I think it's a prequel. I was like, sweet. And then I heard it's a JRPG. I'm like, oh, because I don't like JRPGs. So I have no plan to play it, but I've heard that Sea of Stars is very good.
I had a good time with that one too.
Just not up my alley. So, all right. Jay Huns, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is my carryover from before. It's Eterna Noctis, and it's we talked about it already, but it's so expansive. The biomes feel diverse. It's got some of the best, hardest platforming in the genre, which is a plus for me. I know it's a minus for some people, but I love it.
You're probably
And
not selling mental on it.
It doesn't impress me.
it's a really challenging game if you want to do everything. It's not necessarily the hardest game if you're just trying to run through it once. If you're trying to do everything, it's very much a love it or hate it, and I've loved it and hated it at different times. I will complete it one day. It's a great experience, and I highly recommend checking it out if you're into the genre, into the more difficult parts of the genre.
I'm right there with you. One of the games that's angered me more than any other game in my life is also one of my top 3 favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
And
It's the roller coaster of emotions that really has an effect on you.
true.
And Icefire didn't talk about any of the abilities. The teleport arrow is probably the coolest Metroidvania movement ability upgrade of all time, the way they use it.
Cool.
And maybe one of the most frustrating at times too.
Yeah,
For me, maybe not for you.
it's so cool, and what they do with it and what it allows them to design the levels as really goes crazy.
There was a part in the game, and Jay, you may remember this when I was mentioning it in our chat, that it's supposed to be an easy use of this teleport arrow. A bit, you shoot the arrow and you teleport through it. And for some reason, I could just not get the arrow to go where I wanted it to. And I kept jumping. I had to go through the same area over and over again. It was driving me insane. But then when you get through it,
Part.
it's the minecart part, like it shouldn't be that hard, but for some reason it's early on after you get the arrow, so you're still trying to learn how to use it. But like, again, once you get through it, you get that feeling of just like success, and it just felt good. And then from there on, everything was a little bit easier with the arrow at that point. So, but yeah, that arrow thing drove me nuts at times.
So satisfying to get it right.
It is cool. It is a really cool ability, and yeah, there really is nothing like it in any other game that I've played, for sure. So
And
Now,
the
I'm trying to
DLC
visualize
was
what this
kind of
looks like.
impossible.
I mean, I don't think it's too much. It's basically you shoot an arrow, and you can teleport yourself to the arrow, like
As
wherever it
long as
is.
it's
Now,
not too far
Oh,
away.
so the
yeah, as
further it
long
goes,
as
the
it's
further
within
you
a range.
teleport.
Yeah,
Yes.
but it has to be within
Oh.
a certain range. So
Okay.
imagine, and you don't really know exactly where that range is, but you start to get a
You
feel
get a
for
feel
it.
for it.
I
Yeah.
see.
So, but yeah, like Jay
And
said,
it's
so imagine you're doing all this crazy jumping around platforming, and then the game's like, by the way, shoot an arrow through this tiny little gap, then warp over there, then do some more platforming. Like
Oh,
that's
that actually
where
sounds
things
really
start
cool.
really. It starts to really
That sounds
pull
like a really
together.
cool ability.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really
it's
does.
360-degree control. It's not just you fire it straight. Like if you
Yes.
have your stick
Mm.
neutral, you fire it straight, but you can and have to fire it in like every different direction.
Okay. I
Well,
can get into that.
diagonal.
You can't like guide it or influence its direction after you fire it, right?
No,
Nope.
not after.
Okay.
Again, one of the most frustrating parts of it, because if you shoot it just a little bit off, you're gonna be swearing at the damn thing as it's flying off. And usually you have like maybe your one shot, especially with the harder platforming challenges. You got the one shot to get it. You don't get it in that one shot, you're just swearing at the arrow as you fall to your death. So,
These freaking hitboxes.
it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you try turning on your targeting computer?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one last thing I have to say, the game is so expansive that the speed run achievement for the game is 5 hours. Usually they clock in at like 1.5 or 2 or something. This one's 5 hours and I've failed it.
I can't even imagine. I mean,
Mm.
there are, we have some others in our chat, right, that are really good with the genre too, and even they have expressed this is a tight timeline. And again, 5 hours. That's a long time for a speed run, but you need like every minute of it basically. So
Like most
pretty crazy.
Metroidvanias, you clock in a full completion like 7 to 8 hours. The
Yeah.
speed run for this
Yeah.
one is tight at 5.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I believe it. I mean, I don't even know how you do it in 5 hours. I'd have to really,
We've
like
been
look
close.
at it. Yeah.
Watch someone else do it to take notes.
Yeah. I
Get
mean,
the sequence
like Jason,
breaking down and the cheesing
Yeah.
bosses and all that stuff.
yeah.
All right, and that brings us to Shred for his number 2.
My number 2 is probably your favorite game, Neo. Hollow Knight.
Oh.
Oh, Hollow Knight was a game that I played very obsessively when I first started playing it. It got me hooked almost immediately. And this was one of this was a game that I played at my friend's house because he owned it. It's kind of like the same guy that I told you about earlier on with Bloodstained. So we played a bit of Hollow Knight. I said I really like this game, and I ended up buying it myself, which I did not with Bloodstained, but I did with Hollow Knight. So with Hollow Knight, that I just played very obsessively, and I kind of let go of a lot of responsibilities that I should have taken care of because I'm. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about how good this game is. This freaking game. Just like the first thing you're gonna see, it's gonna look very dark because you're in caves and everything. It's bugs, dirt, rocks, and you're in a cave. You hear water dripping. Like just all the look and feel of it. Like to me was something that I really enjoyed right off the bat because it's got like the creepy but also cute look to it. Like just how the Hollow Knight looks. Like, it's got like those big round eyes and everything. And talking to the characters where it kind of remind me a little bit of talking to a Banjo-Kazooie character, except not as annoying, like anywhere close. Because they kind of do like some noises where you kind of know they're talking, but like they don't actually have voice actors. You just kind of read. But even just all the background music, that somber, melancholic feel that it has throughout most of it, like all of that to me just really, like it's something that, like I knew I was playing a unique game when I was playing this. Because even if I was to hear like just a tiny little bit of one of the scores from the game, like at any given moment, I would immediately Hollow Knight because I really like the music from that game. Even just music that's you're just walking around or actually fighting. Like both of them, I thought were great. A lot of the fights and the enemy design And just in kind of what you were talking about, how frustrating the game is when you have a boss that is just kicking your teeth in over and over again. And I know how I talked about how I don't like something that is overly repetitive, but there are certain ways where that rule is kind of broken to me, where it could be repetitive, and yes, I will get frustrated, but once you get through it, you find it rewarding, which is something that's very difficult to do for me. Because if something's too repetitive, I just get annoyed and I feel like I'm wasting my time. But Hollow Knight did a really good job in making it feel rewarding for some reason. I can't put my finger on how that came about, but especially when you have the enemies that you can fight again, like you fight their dream versions. Oh, they're like the powered up. Those, to me, the reason that that was when I turned into a masochist, as you said, because I took it personally. When you go back and you try to fight one of these dudes, and you already beat his base form, but now this upgraded form is just like, you thought, like suddenly I just can't let it go, and I have to keep fighting them. And to this day, there are two bosses that I have not been able to beat that I still have to fight, and that is Nightmare King Grim and the Radiance.
Yeah, the Radiance.
So,
yeah.
those are the two that I still have to beat, and then that's not even counting the boss gauntlets. Like that's I'm not even counting those. I've tried those. I made it through some of them. Oh my god, those are some very difficult fights that I usually would not be into the type of game that just makes you try something over and over again, as I've mentioned. But something about the way that this game does it, where it kind of gives you something better than just a carrot on the stick. It gives you something where you feel the progress. Even if you keep dying, somehow it made it so that you know that you're getting better. Like you feel it in your bones that you're getting better at this fight or this part in the game or whatever. And that is despite the fact that these bosses don't have health bars. So despite that fact, I still know when I'm like, okay, I'm really getting the hang of this. And you always feel like, okay, I messed up. Like it's easy to see where you mess up. I think that's probably why. Where I can kind of, and even then, it's also the way that it has the system of equipping your charms, which give you certain abilities. Where for each boss fight, you're like, you know what, that didn't work. Let me sit down on the bench. Let me look through my charms, re-equip. Maybe if I have, sturdy body, long nail, whatever. Maybe I need a little more range. Maybe I need a little more health. And you actually have to take a moment and strategize. It's not just running all Leroy Jenkins and trying it over and over and over again. It's like you actually have to take a step back, think about what went wrong, and just gotta scratch your head, do a little reading, and try to come up with a plan. So it's not just repetition. There is some type of planning to it. And that's something that I really appreciated about that game. Now, a couple of things that I didn't like so much about it was just like the way that the checkpoints are, where like you can get knocked so far away back to your last checkpoint, and you have to redo everything if something goes wrong. That sort of stuff that I never really like cared for. Like I don't like it, but with Hollow Knight, I feel like the rest of the game made up for that tremendously, to the point where like it was not a deal breaker for me. I still really enjoyed that game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And it was the first time that I was introduced to the concept of having to fight your soul or your shadow in the spot where you died. And that was the first time I saw that. So to me, I thought that was really cool, because even when you're approaching it, you hear like the creepy music playing when you're getting close to where your shadow is. And you know what I'm talking, like the weird like the chimes.
Yeah, you
and
just
stuff.
start anticipating, okay, shoot, like something's coming, right? Yeah.
And one of the really neat things that really I thought was really cool about the way that they made this was that there are certain powers that you get as as you do in a Metroidvania, or a Vainer, as I should. It's gonna take a little to get used to calling it Vainer. But certain power, like especially the attacks that your shadow also ends up learning, and you have to, it becomes very deadly if you're not careful. So that was one thing that where it actually did get me pretty bad, because I did not expect it. And so that there was some of that happening. But just everything about the look and feel, the anticipation, the way that the game played on making you like giving you that feeling of dread that I talk about, and why I like Metroid games as well, how it gives you that impending doom and like you're alone, even though in Hollow Knight it's not so much the case because there are NPCs that you talk to and all that. But to me, it even just like I said, the music too, especially after you go on YouTube and you find like symphonic metal versions of a lot of the boss fight music and stuff like that. To me, it's something that it's one of those things that I just want to share with everyone, and I cannot wait for Silk Song.
If it ever comes out,
I'm gonna have to, but
Right.
yeah, it's one of those games where it's hard, but it doesn't feel like you're getting cheated. You like
Yeah.
know it's like, oh, I know where I messed up and where I could do better.
yes,
It's not
exactly.
like the game is screwing you over by doing something that makes no sense or
Yeah, and that is something that I always complain about, where I talk about the big brain devs making a game quote unquote challenging, and that's one of the things that I always go on rant about. It's like when I was ranting about Hellpoint, when I was like, yeah, challenging, and the challenge is that the game is freaking broken, but things like that. But no, with Hollow Knight, as frustrating as it was, I did not feel cheated when I would die. Like that was very much one where like I could not even try to fool myself into thinking that it was anything other than get good. Like I really did appreciate that in this game.
Nice. Oh,
It's hard to argue with anybody liking Hollow Knight. Like it's a great game. It's a titan of the genre.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really loved it, and especially because of how we mentioned earlier, how it's like the combination of Metroidvania and like the Soul. I didn't know that Souls was a genre at the time. That was just I thought it was just a thing that Hollow Knight had, but now I know. So and I really enjoyed it. So.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's often at the top of a lot of people's Metroidvania lists as well. So, but yeah, not mine. So, and we got my good friend Melee K. What's up, K? Good to see you.
Yo.
So, all right. Well, that wraps it up for number 2. So, before we get on into our number 1s, we'll do a round with everyone's honorable mentions. Oh, and we got my other good buddy, Angry Canadian. What's up, Angry Canadian? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. So, all right. We'll go around the horn here. Let's start with Icefire. What are your honorable mentions?
Sure. Yeah, so I've got a couple of games on my list that I just wanted to highlight out there. Some of them not as maybe not as well played. Just all games that I enjoyed but weren't good enough to make my top 5 for me at least. So one of the games I have on my list is After Image. This is one of those games that's come out more recently. I've seen some mixed feelings on how people feel about the game. I loved it. Really, it has, again, one of the biggest maps in the genre. But what's fantastic about the game is just it felt good to play. Just you go through, the movement was great, the combat was great. If you like the ability to get yourself a little bit stronger, it's got some of those RPG elements to really kind of build yourself up as you go along. So won't say too much more about it, but it's definitely a game I would recommend people give a shot at. I've got Blast Brigade on my list, another game that I played recently. That's just a fun game. There's nothing like especially great about it, but like honestly, just the story's fun. I had fun playing it, and it's got a very bright, kind of colorful look. It's got some great humor in it. Definitely recommend people give that one a shot. And then honestly, just a couple of the other ones that I personally enjoyed that I don't know gets as much attention. There is this game, Eight Doors, Arun's Afterlife Adventure. Not a lot of people, even within the genre, know that game. I believe it uses South Korean folklore. And I could be wrong on that. I believe, Jay, you're nodding. I hope that means I'm right. And
I believe
it's
you're
just
right.
yeah, it's just a very different story, but it's told really well. And the combat's great. The game is great, just not a lot of people have played it as much, and again, definitely a game that I recommend people give a shot to. And then honestly, this one, Jay, you and maybe others may give me a look for this one, but I really enjoyed The Last Case of Benedict Fox. Um, I know that
actually
there's
didn't hate that. I know some
okay.
people did.
Yeah, some
It
people
had a
really
rough launch, but I thought it was
yeah.
pretty cool.
So like it had a rough launch. People that played it early on definitely did not enjoy it. We know of a couple people that played it later on and still didn't enjoy it. But it's one of those games. It has a fantastic art style to it. It's kind of got this like dark, but like I don't know, it's almost like kind of Tim Burton-y in a way that the characters are like a little like, strange looking, but it's got a really cool, like almost like Cthulhu type, theme to it. Your character has like this dark monster that's like part of him that you use to actually do your attacks, when you're playing through the game. And there's, it's one of those games where there's some puzzles to figure out and stuff like that. I thought the game came together really well. Again, not great enough to make my top five, but definitely, enough to recommend people give it a shot. So,
HP
There were a few
Lovecraft.
things I didn't like,
love,
but they
yes,
they fixed one of them. Like the initial performance was horrible. They fixed
yeah,
that. The
yep.
tarot puzzles are really lame. They didn't fix that.
I agree with the tarot puzzles. That would be my one downside. Yeah, because
And the
it's just not
story
clear.
ends just a little abruptly. Like
I
they
agree.
needed another like 15 minutes or 20 minutes in there to wrap it up properly.
Yeah, I agree. It could have wrapped a little smoother. But sometimes for me, too, like the journey getting there was enjoyable, so I was able to kind of forgive that. I wasn't able to forgive Mass Effect 3 for its ending, but I was able to forgive this game for it. So
Yeah,
I was
Lovecraftian was
overall
the word
pretty
I was looking
positive.
for.
thank you. That's the one I was trying to think of too, Neo. I appreciate that. Yeah,
I
so
was
it's got a
like,
Lovecraftian feel to it.
I was
Absolutely.
thinking H.R. Geiger. Like, no, that's not right. There's
Yeah,
another name for it. So I had to Google it real quick. It's like
yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft.
No, I'm
Lovecraftian, that's
glad
what
you
it
said it
is.
because that's why I can't, Cthulhu again, right? Kind of ties in with the whole
Mhm.
HP Lovecraft theme, but I could not think of the name. So thank you. Yeah, it's got that feel to it. And I like those kind of games that have that, cool monster kind of look, shred that kind of lines up with what you had said about the Bloodstain games, where it's got these,
Hmm.
interesting, cool monsters to it, and it ties it in with like almost real world, but, you know, off a little bit, feel to
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I
So,
love that uncanny valley stuff.
yeah, so like, this game kind of has that. And again, it's different, but yeah, I found it to be really enjoyable. So that's it. The only other one I had on my list, which I'll mention very briefly, is Carrion. Which again, all of us on Xbox have probably played. It was on Game Pass, when it came through. It's just a fantastic game. It's not a strong, Metroidvania type per se. It doesn't have a map. It's one of the things people hated about the game.
You can
But
find one online though. That
you
helps a
can
lot.
find one online, and honestly, it's just a fun game. It's not difficult or anything like that, but you actually get to play as
A
I don't
creature.
think it's too much a spoiler, right? You're the bad guy in this game, and so it's a very different perspective, than most games, and it's fun being the bad guy. They give you enough power that you're going around just kicking, everybody's butt to kind of get out of where you're trapped in, and again, it has some cool twists to it. It's not incredible, but it's a fun game. So if you can get it for a good price, it's
It's
absolutely worth playing.
it's currently on sale. I just picked it up with the
Oh,
messenger
good.
the other day for a few bucks.
Good. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely worth a few bucks without a doubt. Like absolutely recommend it for that. So,
There's not
Yeah.
that many games where you actually get to consume people.
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, they
You
should make
eat
more games like that.
you're the tentacle monster and you eat the scientist to get stronger. It's great.
Yeah.
And it's
It's
not very
fantastic.
long. So if you're looking for a pretty quick game to get through, it's
Yep.
pretty short.
Yep, it's a short one. And again, yeah, for the time, it's the perfect length for the game because I feel like if they tried to make it too much longer, it could have gotten boring. So they keep it to a length where you can just kind of you get in, you enjoy it, you get out, and then you're done. So that's my list.
Cool. All right, Rocker Dude, what are your mentions?
So Carry On was on my mentions list as well. So second to that. I also have Guacamelee 2.
Mm,
Both of the
Yeah.
Guacamelos were really good, but I think the second one was better. Again, this is kind of a standard fare for Metroidvania, but it has a lot of focus on the combat and how you can keep those combos going. That one is pretty well known, so I won't go too much into that one as well. And then my last honorable mention is one that is kind of like a Metroidvania light. It's Steamworld Dig 2, and I say that because it's just weird. It's not like the other Metroidvanias, kind of like Carry On. It's completely in the genre, but at the same time, I don't know, it's different enough, and it has all of the Metroidvania stuff built into it. You can sequence break. There are speed runs, as far as achievements go, and different types of runs you could do to get those. And it's just really enjoyable little bits of dopamine hits along the way that these Vayners like to give us.
Yeah, good pick. Shred, when you were on open mic and I mentioned Metroidvanias, wasn't that the one that you asked me about?
No, I don't think that was it. I'm
Okay.
trying to remember which one it was.
There was someone I was talking to recently, and I mentioned Metroidvanias. Like, oh, have you played Guacamelee? I was like, yes, I've played both of them. So I thought it was you.
Guacamelee was one that Adam Espit was recommending to me for a while,
Oh,
and I never got around to it. But
it's probably when I had him on then.
Maybe.
I mean, like Corey said, I mean, I think people vary on whether they like the first or the second better. I think I kind of like them both for different reasons. They play slightly differently, but they're both great standard fare for the genre, and they do it so well, and it's great, animation, and I think like Corey said, the combat too, right, is just fantastic. Like it's just fun to play, and it's got a good sense of humor to that game too.
Yeah, lots of Easter eggs. I like them both. I like the first one a little bit better, but they were both good.
Carl is saying, I believe that it was him.
Okay. Yep, it was Adam that when he was on open mic and he asked me about Metroidvanias. Yeah. So I knew it was one of you two. Because him and Shred were doing a podcast together for a while. Okay. So they're good buddies. So, all right, Jayhans, what are your mentions?
Yeah, some of them have already been mentioned. After Image was on my list. Like I agree with everything Icefire said, but also he didn't mention that the game is like stunningly beautiful. Like,
yes,
it's so pretty and colorful. Like, it was a joy to play through, just looking at the areas, looking at the enemies, looking at the backgrounds. Like, in addition to all the gameplay elements, it's just so pretty.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
It's very different, right, from most of the games in the genre. You don't get a lot of these bright, colorful, explore through the jungle type games, right? So
kind of like Iconoclast, which you also mentioned. Very bright and colorful there too. But After Image is so pretty.
It is.
I also wanted to mention a few titans of the genre that didn't make my top 5, but I gotta give them respect. Symphony of the Night, Hollow Knight, and the Metroid Prime series. They're all like seminal works to me. They didn't make my top 5, but it was hard to take them off when I was making the list. Yeah. And then another game that's super fun, super light, super friendly is Islets. It's a short, fun experience by a solo dev who also made Sheepo, which is also pretty fun. It's pretty. It's not too difficult. It's a friendly intro to the genre, and it's also going to be free on the Epic Games Store like next week. So there is no reason not to play it. Like, if you're listening to this stream, just go get it next week when it's free. Play it. There's no reason not to. It's great.
I'm going to be picking it up on the Epic Store. It has not been on sale, or at least not for more than
for
like 10%.
A while. Yeah, well, I think it was like 30 or 40%.
Oh, was it?
But like 30. It was $14. That's the cheapest.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
It's been a while though, so if it goes on sale again, I'm going to get it on Xbox.
Yeah, I next time it goes on sale, I'm definitely picking it up too. I've heard, beyond Jay's recommendation, a lot of people say good things about that game.
And then I also wanted to highlight a couple games that have really unique elements that make them different from anything else in feeling. One of them is the one I'm playing right now, Leica. I already went through that. It's Trials with shotguns. It's insanely frustrating, but also really cool. Another one is Dandara. the movement system in Dandara is unlike anything you have ever played in a Metroidvania. You're stuck to platforms. There are places you can stand, and then you aim yourself and you launch yourself across to a different platform. And you have to do this while enemies are shooting at you. There are spikes everywhere. There's holes you can fall into. Like it's unlike any other movement system you've ever used in your life, unless it's like a Fadian game. Like it's almost like the Fadian game of Metroidvanias, kind of, but it's also really cool.
Yeah, because you
Like it a
can't
lot.
actually walk in that game. You can only
No, you cannot walk. You can only yeet yourself across the level.
yeah.
That's a love-hate game for me. Like I
I've heard it's
enjoyed
very
it, but I
polarizing.
also I wanted to run so many times in that game, and it really annoyed me because, like,
I
you almost feel
absolutely
locked
believe it.
in. You know, you're locked into a space, and you're like, "Get me out of here!"
And
And
there's
all you can do
bullets
is shoot
coming at
yourself.
you and
You know?
lasers.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
but yeah, I
it's
mean,
so
it's
weird.
also it is an enjoyable game for sure.
And I wanted to call out one more, which I was struggling to take off. I really wanted this. This is like number 6, maybe number 7 for me. It's Vision Soft Reset,
Oh,
and it
I
is
thought you were gonna say.
a semi-retro styled Metroidvania, but you can rewind time. Literally, if you get hit by a bullet, you can rewind time. You're no longer damaged. If you fall into a hole, you can rewind time. You didn't fall into that hole. You'd
Like
think
Braid.
that would make the game easy. It's so hard. It's fantastic.
Shred, there's your Prince of Persia Sand
Yeah,
of
I was
Time.
gonna say.
There you go.
I was gonna say, like, oh, that's what I remember from those OG
Yeah.
games.
It is. You're
It's
a
like-
robot. You can rewind time. There's a fairly interesting story. There's knowledge checkpoints where you spend like 10 minutes doing something, and then you find out that there was a shortcut, and that cuts like 8 minutes off the route to the next thing. Oh, also, you only have 10 minutes on any run, and if it gets to
I did not
10
know
minutes, the whole world explodes, and you have
I
to
did not know
start from the
that.
ship again.
I didn't
So
know that either. That's interesting.
There's the map is not only a map, but also a series of save checkpoints at specific with specific power-ups you've collected at a certain time at a certain save point, and you can revisit those at any time and make a new branch off to do a new thing from that save. It's crazy. It's so good.
Cool.
It's
And
actually
for
not a bad price either, from
No,
what
it's
I've
pretty
seen. Like
steep,
I've
too.
almost
$10.
picked it up a couple times. Yeah.
I
And
would
also-
absolutely recommend it.
it's interesting because it's the lowest played game for Metroidvanias on TA. I'm not counting Japanese stacks. Otherwise, it's the lowest at 38 tracked gamers.
Which
It's
is crazy to
incredibly
me.
underrated.
Yeah, it seems like it's definitely a game, Jay, that I've thought about picking up. I think after you've kind of sold me on it here. It does sound very interesting. So
That sounds great.
I-
It sounds
yeah,
like
I'm gonna
Yeah.
pick that up.
if you were to combine that game Minute with
Yeah,
Braid
yeah,
and make it a 2D Metroidvania.
Yeah, which
sounds
sounds
great.
awesome, right? When you tie all that together.
Yeah,
It's
I put a
very
price
unique
tracker on it.
group of mechanics, and it's really neat.
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
that in my backlog, but haven't played it yet because
You're definitely going to be lost a few times, but that's the genre.
Part of the genre, right? Yeah.
It
Well,
lost.
those are some great shout outs. I thought one of you guys was going to mention Yoku Island Express, but
That
It
was
is a good.
that was
It
on
is a
my
great
It's
game.
there.
Yeah.
so
Also a great game.
Yeah.
for anyone who doesn't know, that is a pinball Metroidvania, which I've not played yet, but I've heard good things. So
Uh,
And
It's
there
great.
was
I
Metroid
mean-
Pinball too.
that there was. That
I
was
mean,
an
it-
actual pinball game.
Yeah, it's a great
Oh.
game. Like I think for me, again, I don't remember a lot about it now at this point, so I think it's just not as memorable for me. But it's absolutely a game if you're looking for something with different mechanics. That's a great game. So
Also very light and kid friendly. Like it's not one of the ones with a grim story or anything. It's just silly. You're a snail, right? And you're
I think you're like a
delivering
beetle.
something.
You're a
Yeah.
dung beetle.
yeah, Dung Beetle. Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you're just a mailman, but also a pinball.
So, all right. And Shred, what are your honorable mentions?
There's really just one that really pops to mind that I want to talk about because like the rest of them are, as you know, my obsession is I'm just gonna name more Metroid games, except maybe like Hunters and Pinball, but yeah. So I want to bring out. I keep forgetting how to pronounce the name. Shanty.
Shantae.
I think it was
Shantae,
Shantae.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Specifically, I think it was the Pirate's Curse was the one that I played that I
I
just
was going to be
remembered 'cause
curious. I was curious because there is one Shantae game that is considered not a Metroidvania, but people often mistake it as one. I'm glad you didn't name that one. So go ahead. Sorry.
He's talking
No,
about
well, this is the one that I played, so I don't know which one you would be referring to.
he's talking about half genie hero.
Genie Hero. So it's more of
Oh.
a level based thing. You know, it's interesting because like every other Shantae game is in the Metroidvania, you know, in that genre. I was curious though. As soon as you said Shantae, I was like, oh, I'm wondering if he's going to name that one.
Yeah.
So I'm glad.
I was just
Okay,
curious
go
which
ahead.
one
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
Pirate's Curse, there's Risky's Revenge, and there's Seven Sirens, and I haven't played 7
Mhm.
Sirens yet.
Yeah, the only one I played was the Pirate's Curse, and like that one kind of drew my attention because it was another one that I played with my buddy, and I mean the whole idea of like pirates and cannons shooting at you and just like the animation and everything, I just thought was really cool. Like I love that type of stuff too, just flavor wise, I suppose. Not as much as the horror sci-fi, but you know that was one that, and at the time that I played it, I didn't know what a Metroidvania was either. So like it's just one of those things where I like these games and I don't know exactly what it is. I can just kind of point to things about the formula without realizing that it's a whole genre. So, but this is one where it, like to me, just like a lot of the animations and kind of like what you were talking about, how like it wasn't all dark and gloomy. It was just more of like you know like big bright sky, seagulls, and then of course there's cannons shooting at you and you know swords slashing and like the movement and everything just felt really good. I thought that was a game that I had a lot of fun with, and a lot of the memories that I had, you know, between just like playing that game and playing other like it reminded me a lot of like not a Metroidvania, but I was played Aladdin was one of the first games that I played as a kid on the SNES. So it reminded me a lot of that. So I just kind of had that in mind while I was playing this as well. And it's kind of like what I talk about, how like previous experiences and other things kind of add on to whatever I'm currently playing. So it just kind of gives it that extra layer of you know to my experience when I play it. So to me that was a game that I had a lot of fun with, and it just didn't make the list. And the only reason it really didn't make the list was because like I never completed it. Because like I said, it was another one of those games that I played with my friend where he played for a bit, died a bunch of times, and passed it to me. I died a bunch of times. It was just kind of that. And so I couldn't really put it on the list for that reason. I mean, I did it with Bloodstained because I saw enough of Bloodstained to where I was like, okay, yeah, this is a good game. Like I need to put this one on there. But yeah, so that's the one that I wanted to bring up.
Cool. All right, and yeah, Cult Carl saying surprising no one's brought up Ori yet. To be honest, I'm surprised as well. But we got one more pick, so you never know.
I will say that
was for the first episode.
There was an Ori game fighting for my 5th spot. So the Will of the Wisps, fantastic game. The only reason I put Iconoclast on is because I knew nobody would mention that, and that's a game I wanted to highlight. But yeah, both Ori games I do feel are fantastic. But I'll leave it just in case anybody is going to mention it as their first. So.
All right, so that brings us to number 1, and that is all right. So, well, cool. We are on to our number 1s, and Icefire, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So my number 1. Shred, you're number 2. You know, Hollow Knight.
All right.
That game for me, yeah. I mean, so this one was a tough one just because everybody, you know, it's on the top, like you said, Neo, right, of a lot of people's lists. And I struggled with this because I did want to try and, you know, put a unique game at my number 1, but this game actually really had a special meaning for me. The Metroidvania genre, right, in general, like is a genre that I had been wanting to get into for ages. And I will say, like, I tried getting into Hollow Knight in 2020, played it, and like got to the first area and I just kept dying. And I got so mad, I just was like, all right, I'm not playing this game right now. because it does have that effect, especially
Yep.
early on.
That's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. So like you have to like get past it a little bit. You have to just get past there a little bit, and it really starts to get its hooks into you. So about a year later, I came back and I got past that part and I kept going. And it's just, I think one of the coolest things about Hollow Knight, and I've seen other people express this too, is just like how the world just kind of flows together. So, like we've talked about other games having, all these distinct areas. What's cool about Hollow Knight is, the areas are distinct, but not as distinct, but it all melds together and it all kind of flows in a way that makes sense. Um, and it's just a really cool put together world. It was a world I wanted to explore. I wanted to see more of it. I wanted to see what was in this corner, what was in that corner. Um, it's just a very smooth game. The combat, as you said earlier, Shred, it's just fantastic. The way you can mix and match, all of the different pins or metals or whatever it was, right? That
The
that
charms.
change your attribute. The charms, thank
Yeah.
you. That is just cool to me because I like having that flexibility, right? Like something that gives you an edge, but again, depending on how you play, right? Like you might use different charms than I would on a boss, and it works well for both of us, right? Just
Right.
based on how you play. So honestly, yeah, it's just a highly polished game. Really enjoyed the challenge of it as I went along. The one thing I will mention to you, Shred, because I didn't hear you say it, is there is an invincibility glitch for those that you know struggle later in the game. I will say I used it for the last Pantheon, maybe the last two Pantheons, because they get ridiculous. So the Pantheons, for those who haven't played the game, are basically a string of boss fights. And the first one, not so bad. Second one, getting pretty hard. The third one
Yep.
starts to get ridiculous, and then it just gets like insane from there on. And like I tried so many times to get through those last two, I think it was in there, and I couldn't do it. And so there is an invincibility glitch if you look it up that will let you get through in case you want to see what it looks like past those pantheons, just to see the story
Right.
or whatever. But again, this game just again, it's on the top of a lot of people's lists. For me, it has a special meaning because not only did I really enjoy the game, but it was the start of my, really getting into the genre again and really wanting to dig in and find more games. And it really just piqued, my love for this genre. So, that to me is why I put it in my number one spot. So,
Nice. Vanquish is here and he's still alive.
There we go.
Hollow Knight's on
Love
his
that.
PS5 hard drive, and he almost always plays it for 30, 45 minutes after something. So he loves it too.
yeah,
Oh,
it's a
but
well,
for
he
some
says it
reason,
doesn't
does
grab
not
him,
grab
right?
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a game. Again, you have to get past the first part, and you might not, right? It's not, again, it's a game where, again, not every gamer is going to love every game, right? But
Right.
if this game is going to be a game that gets its hooks into you, you're going to have to push past a little bit of difficulty in that beginning part. You start to build up a little bit of health. Your weapon can get a little bit stronger. You start getting those charms, and then you can start to get travel into different areas, and really like it starts to just expand so quickly, and from that point on, the flow is a lot smoother. But that first, couple hours of the game can be
It can be
really
rough.
frustrating. Yeah, it really can.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Vanquish. It hasn't captured me, but I will give it its full due at some point. I just haven't yet because I just
Yeah.
haven't been. It hasn't got its hooks in me yet.
Yep.
And again, it does what the Souls games do. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, like it's that way. It's just like the people that love Souls games, like you think they're crazy, but you can see why. And like again, we're Hollow Knight. The Hollow Knight's great, and it just has that little part of it. But again, as soon as you get stronger in this aspect, you're like, oh, this became a little bit easier. Then you get to a wall, and you're like, oh, I can beat this. Oh no, I can't. Then you get there again, you're like, okay, what if I do this? And you just keep going and going and going. But yeah, I completely understand too.
All right. And Corey, what about your number one?
So my number one is my first. It's Shadow Complex. You always remember your first. I
Nice.
can't get enough of this game. I think it's number one for a multitude of reasons. One, it looks great. Even today, it came out in like 2009, and then they remastered it in like 2016 or something like that. And I remember playing the game originally, getting through it, and it was fun the first time, but then getting into the achievements, which is kind of what like gave me this intrigue, because I see an achievement again in Xbox Live Arcade days. You only have 12 options, so there wasn't many, but there was an achievement for beating the game with like 13% of the items, and I was just thinking, what? That's possible? um, because you get most of that percentage just by your normal progression. And that's when you started to look into the videos, like how do you do this? And I followed a run, and that's where I learned about sequence breaking and things like that. And it really opened up, like, wow, you can really break this game in a good way, in a fun way. And then the remaster did it again. It added more achievements where you had to get everything in 2 hours, and then 3 hours on insane difficulty. And it makes it super challenging, but at the same time, super fun.
One of them was for beating it with only 4%.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous. It's like almost like, how do you do that? And obviously the guides help. I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but it's still fun to do. And I want nothing more than to play this game over again or have a sequel to it.
Yeah, I would love a sequel to Shadow Complex.
Yep.
Good pick. I don't remember where that was, but I did have that on my top 5 because I love that game.
It was it was on a couple people's top 5 and a lot of honorable mentions. As what I have when I went through the list right now, it was sitting at number 8. So with you getting it number 1, it's going to this top 5 from combining from episode 1 to this is kind of getting very, very interesting. So
yes, this is gonna be
this
well,
is
this is the first part 2, so
yeah.
So
I feel like it does make a lot more sense that the higher you go on the list, the more they're gonna start to overlap.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see after we get through the last couple number 1s. So Shred, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is probably nobody else's number 1, because the reason it's my number 1 is just like Corey said earlier. It was my first. And this was Metroid Prime 2 Echoes.
Nice.
And this is what I mentioned earlier when I said what got you into the genre, and that's the one. But also, like, on its merit, though, not just the fact that it was the first one that got me hooked, just like on its merit of, like, when I first played this, I was young enough to where concepts like the whole mechanic it has with the light and shadow worlds was something that really blew me away, because it was not there at first. Like it teases it when you see Dark Samus, which again, that was another thing that I was like, whoa, and then just like the game to me was the first game I played where it felt so dark, and in the way that it just throws you in and goes, figure it out. Like everything's trying to kill you. like good luck. And like I said, to me, the idea of playing because I want to say, like, playing like a first person like that was never really anything that appealed to me. And this is another reason that it took me so long to actually play the game, even though I owned it. But it was one of the last games I owned that I actually played, because it just did not seem appealing until I played it. And I was like, boy, was I wrong. But so it was something completely unique to me, where it got to the point where I was so appreciative of so many of the details, just like the enemy design. So like a lot of them look like, I mean, they're all aliens, but they're also meant to be some, like, not supernatural at first. Yeah, but it is kind of it is like horror. It's like these are monsters, basically. Everything's trying to kill you. And then it does turn into a very, like, supernatural, in my opinion, with when the Shadow World comes in, and the Ing is like what they call the enemies. They're basically like demons, but they take over living creatures in the light world, and even more sentient ones, like like the space pirates and all that, they start getting taken over. Boss fights, it's like they're like this is an entity that to me, like, it was so freaking metal in my opinion. Just how it's like this virus slash demon slash alien thing that it never fully explains to you what it's supposed to be, but you see different variants and iteration manifestations of it until you go up to the point where you kill like the actual emperor, like the core of it all, and all that. But the idea of you exploring like an entire area, and then you finally find a portal to go into the dark version of it, and the first thing you find out is that the very air itself is trying to kill you. Like you have to like move it in these safe zones, which to me was like it was a little frustrating at first until you get used to it and you realize, oh, okay, that's, and then it also just gets better as you get upgrades and all that. But you start seeing all these new enemies. You start seeing like these like distortions and like of enemies that you already saw. And this was one of the things that I mentioned earlier again, where it's like you see an enemy and like you see a new enemy, but it's the same as something that you already faced, but a different color. It kind of had this effect to an extent where you see like the dark versions of enemies that you already fought. And then the more you progress throughout the game, it starts introducing more I wouldn't call them mechanics, but more little tidbits like the new beams that those start playing around with the whole light and shadow. And so all of that stuff was just really fascinating. And it made it so that everything that I explored, I had to in my mind make a mental note and see what the other worlds parallel to it would be and try to like match them up as I was trying to find secrets and all the like the power-ups that you gotta find. And this was a game that eventually, I think after maybe like the third or fourth time that I beat it, I looked online because I wanted 100% it, and I couldn't find anything on my own. I'm like, you know what? I'll look it up, and I found out that you can get, I think it was 102%, which wasn't really anything huge. It was just there's a part where you can, I think they called it the ghetto jump, where it's basically like a glitched out wall where you have to get it just right, but you can jump over it to sequence break and get an item. But then once you go through a cutscene, the item is there again, so you go past 100%.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So that I had to do it just so that I could say I did it. And I'm like, all right, I completed it. But like usually with me, and like I'm not, it's very hit or miss whether I want to be a completionist in a game. Like it's really hit or miss. There's seemingly no rhyme or reason to it. It's just if I feel it. but Metroid, I definitely felt it. Especially this one. When I play Metroid games, I just have to. And
yeah.
Even Other M. That's the game that on a whim I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna go back 100% this, and I did. But because that's one that gets hated on a lot. But Prime 2 Echoes was one that even in retrospect, after playing one, I can see the appeal to Prime as like why so many people believe that one is the best. But to me, it was just the fact that all the light and dark stuff, mainly like being introduced to that, is what kind of solidified that for me, as well as just the way that a lot of the environments look, like how you go through, like the desert was not too exciting for me. It was actually kind of boring to me. But it made sense. Like I didn't think anything of it because that's what I expected from like, oh, it's a desolate planet. And then it turns out that it's not, because you go into the Torvis Bog where everything's flooded, there's rain, all this wildlife and plants everywhere. And then after that, you go to the Sanctuary Fortress where it's just this super advanced, like you would, like as it says, it's a fortress, and it's all like all the enemies are like these computers that launch viruses at you, and you have to like reboot your suit because like it actually make vision and everything glitch out. And there's just so many things about this game that are so cool that I could just keep going on and on. But I want to give people, everyone else a turn, so I'm gonna slow down here.
Yeah, I for my list, I limited myself to one Metroid game, and for me, it was between Metroid Prime 1 and 2. I did eventually end up going with Metroid Prime 1, but I love Metroid Prime 2 almost as much as the first one.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure
great.
Angry Canadian's a big fan of Prime 2 as well, because Prime 2 did get a lot of hate because of the Dark World, so a lot of people don't like it at all. So seeing more people
That's
who
one of the
love
things
it,
why I liked it.
yeah. So seeing other people who love Prime 2 is pretty cool.
I
Cool.
really like both 1 and 2.
You liked both as well?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, I
Like,
like
3 was weird to me.
Yeah,
Like,
I
don't
like
get me wrong, I still loved it, but it was just weird. There being
I
other
like-
people
I
talking
liked
to
1
you.
and 2. I just know that for 2 for me, at least when I played it back in the day, I never could beat the final boss. I think like the final boss really drove me crazy because I think you had to use like, if I remember, it's like you had to use some sort of light mechanic to kind of weaken him or something like that. It's been a long time since I played it.
Yeah.
That's definitely a game I have to go back to at some point because there is something special about those Metroid Prime games. I think it was one of the first times that we kind of saw the Metroidvania genre be in this, more from a first person, standpoint, type of view.
Yep.
But I love that, they use environmental storytelling in those games, right? Like, it wasn't
yeah.
really like you were told much story, but like if you as you scan things in those environments, right, you started to learn pieces of the story and you'd get little snippets here
Yeah.
and there. And that was really cool. Not a lot of games, build out the world like that. And it made you want to go and explore more to find out more about the world, and
Right,
that was
Corey?
a cool part.
Oh, he loves story, right?
He loves
No, but I
reading
agree with you there
dialogue
because
entries.
someone I talked to told me like, yeah, there doesn't seem to be a story in this game. It's like, well, the game doesn't just give you the story; you piece it
Yeah.
together. And that was one of the things that I would do too. Like if I'm playing and I want to take a little break, during my break, what I would do is like I would go to the logbook and I'm
Yep.
just like reading all the lore that you've collected. I'm reading the creature entries because like they sometimes even the creatures have lore attached to them.
It adds.
It doesn't just
adds
tell
to
you
it.
what they do and
Yep.
how to kill them. Like it'll actually tell you some cool things like this. It's kind of like reading the Pokédex entries. It's just flavor text. Like I just had so much fun reading all of those, and so many of the enemies were just such cool designs.
Yeah, definitely.
Sweet, yeah. Good pick. All right, and that leaves us with the last number 1 with Jay Huns. What's your number 1?
All right, I feel a little awkward because I'm the only one that's cheating here, but I was unable to separate my love for the 2 Ori games, so I'm submitting them both at number 1.
That happened on part 1.
There you go, Adam.
Because I think Jason did that, and he couldn't.
I did
pick,
that.
So he picked
I could.
both.
I chose the collection. Yeah, I did the same exact thing you did.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I had the same reaction. Like the storytelling in the Ori games is absolutely beautiful. I think it's some of the best storytelling in the entire genre. The first game, I believe, may be the best storytelling in the entire genre. I like the story in the second one as well, but the first one makes me cry like 3 times, 4 times during the game every single time. Like I'm a crybaby. I cry during emotional stuff, but Ori gets me every time in the same spots, and it's like the first game is very emotional, and I played it at a time in my life where I had a very small child, so all the story beats about being a kind of a child abandoned or a child who lost a parent, those all hit really hard at that particular moment in my life, and that's stuck with me emotionally for ever since. um so I love Ori 1. Like the combat wasn't the best combat in the genre. You know, we all know that about Ori 1, but it's an absolutely beautiful game with a wonderfully told story, and it's hard not to love it in my opinion. And then Ori 2, they came along, they made another absolutely phenomenally beautiful game, and then they took the gameplay from 1 and they stole all the good elements from everything that had come out since Ori 1 and put it in, and the combat is phenomenal in Ori 2. It's a massive upgrade. The gameplay is just incredible. And the story's not, it doesn't hit me quite the same way that one does, but I do cry at the end still. So it's,
I think I may
think
have
they're both phenomenal games.
I think I may have scarred my daughter because she loved watching me play Ori 2. And we got to a
Oh, no.
particularly sad part about halfway through. And then she
Mhm.
never really wanted to watch the rest of it, which is sad because she would have
I think I saw you mention that in Discord.
enjoyed how it resolved out. But oh my gosh, the poor thing, like she was like, no, what happened to, but, and again. So yeah, I agree
My
with you.
kids
The
have had
storytelling.
similar
Yeah.
reactions to that
Yeah.
particular moment.
Oh, yeah. It does hit you in the feels. Both games, absolutely hit you in the feels. And yeah, I wish, like I wanted to have at least one of them in my spots. It was tough to leave them out because I agree with you. They are fantastic games. And, it's something that everybody that likes this genre should experience because they are just so well put together, not to mention like the fact that you can play those games in 120 fps, when some games are struggling to hit 30 fps these days. With how beautiful they are, it's just amazingly well optimized, and it makes the gameplay so smooth. It's incredible. So
Yeah. And
And-
I mean, everyone in the genre has some appreciation for Ori, I think, at least to some degree. But the time in my life when the first Ori game hit me, it's stuck with me so hard that I couldn't put it anywhere else but number one.
Nice. Yeah, and one of the other things I mentioned when I was talking about it, because Will o' the Wisp is my number one, is the music in both games is phenomenal as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's one of the very few games I actually went outside of the game to listen to the soundtrack on my phone.
mhm.
So awesome. Well, that is an excellent list. So that leaves us with our last segment, which is the group ranking part. However, since this is our first part 2 of a stream, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work.
I actually,
I'm
mean, you
hoping
don't need a
Jason has
list.
an answer for this.
I have an answer for you
There we
guys.
go.
And things got really, really tight at the top 3. I will say that.
Mm.
But I do have everything all right here on me. I will say it's gonna be crazy, but out of our top 5 that we had before, we have Symphony of the Night being bumped out, and we have Prime being bumped out, and then just because of, you said both like I did for Ori, Blind Forest got bumped out, but Will o' the Wisp, you'll see, kind of got moved up in a way too. But it's crazy how close everything actually is for the top 3 right now. But without further ado, number 5, it was close. It was number 8. Yeah, it was number 8 when we started here. But Shadow Complex found its way to number 5. On the first episode, we had a lot of people say, obviously had an honorable mentions. Doesn't get you the points that we normally do, but again, a lot of people respect the game. It gets a little bit sad, and there was multiple people saying it, so it was on multiple people's lists, so I guess kind of gives a little bit more too. Number 4, Prince of Persia. Again, same thing with kind of like Shadow Complex. Everybody's mentioning it. Everybody loves it. Again, it could be. I mean, I've played it too. It's great. Again, it is more recent too, so it had to have a little bit more recency bias. But again, I don't think it does. I think it's just a really, really good game as well.
It also has
a
a
game that
solid
was-
chance to go up as additional content gets released.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
And
a
as
crazy
more
point.
people play it too. I don't think not everybody's played it yet too.
It's still
So
so new.
That's very
Yeah.
true. Very, very true. One, because I didn't expect what Jay Hunt's number 1 was going to be. But Hollow Knight found its way in. It moved up the most, and it's at number 3 now. It's very, very, very close to number 2, which is Will o' the Wisps. But and I mean, by just 1 point, Super Metroid still takes it, and that's just because Tread decided he mentioned if he didn't say it, we had Super Metroid bouncing down a little bit. But again, because of the first episode, we had a lot of people mention it. But again, I mean, Hollow Knight, Ori, Will o' the Wisp, and Super Metroid, I mean, they're all super, super close right now.
You got
I don't
to
think
Kept
anybody-
Metroid at the top.
Yeah. I don't think anybody could argue with those three, though. I mean,
Exactly. Yep.
they're all great games in their own way. So
Yeah.
I still gotta play Ori, so that's
Do it.
that should probably be one of my first
Definitely
ones to
do
look
it.
into.
Oh,
That one and Prince of
absolutely.
Persia are like the two that I'm kind of really thinking.
Yes.
And
Yes.
like I said, there's so many on this list that I have to, but
Yeah,
I need to make the time.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for having all that ready to go, Jason. Because I was like, I don't know how this is going to work since we haven't done a part 2 before.
I mean, we just kind of like I said, we just go for what we had for the first episode. Like I
Ranked
said, I
order
watched a little
kinda?
bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched it. I kind of did the same thing that we've been doing. And then again, as we were doing this kind of stuff, I was putting how many votes, the point style system that we're kind of going with, but with also how many people are. So again, it's not based on points, but it's based on, hey, if you're number one and another person's number one, that's going to be 10 points, but that's only 2. If there's like 4 people that have the same amount, 4 people's opinions better than 2 at number 1.
And if that makes sense to people. So yeah, that's why. So again, it's gonna be close. So if we do multiple episodes of these topics, we're gonna see a little bit more separation, hopefully more togetherness, but it's gonna be very interesting to see how everything kind of goes together to see what actually is, our official top 5.
Sweet. All right. So, last thing before we kind of wrap it up here, I just want to go around and ask everyone, what Metroidvanias are you looking forward to playing? Doesn't necessarily have to be something that's new, but just something that you haven't gotten around to playing yet and you're looking forward to playing. So, we'll go clockwise. So we'll go with Shred. I think you kind of already just said it, but
Yeah, and mainly Prince of Persia because that's the one that I've heard of the most. And like I said, I've had like a lot of you mentioned it, a lot of other people just online have also mentioned it in real life, and it's a game that keeps coming up. And my buddy was even telling me like, man, I was actually really surprised by how good this was, and that's a lot of the same reactions that I've been seeing from it. So that's one that I've already had maybe a little over a month that I've been thinking about playing that at some point. I'm just trying to get through some other things that I already got scheduled for myself, but that's gonna move up the list for sure.
cool. Yeah, Paul's looking forward to playing the sequel to Salt and Sanctuary, Salt and Sacrifice. No surprise there. And Jans, what are you looking forward to playing?
I've cranked through 120 already, but I've got plenty more on my list. 2 that are out that I want to play are Jedi Survivor whenever it goes on EA Play, and
I'm looking
Blasphemous
forward to playing
2
that as well.
when it goes
Blasphemous.
on a sale.
Hopefully soon. Yeah.
Got to be soon.
Oh,
I'm also
yeah, Jedi Survivor. I'm assuming it should pretty soon.
Next month,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Most likely.
hopefully. Really also looking forward to Rusted Moss, which just got announcement of an Xbox port in June.
Yep.
That's like a grappling
heard of
hook Metroidvania that's gotten some buzz lately.
What's that one called again?
Rusted Moss. It came out a few months ago on Steam, and the Xbox port was just announced like yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago.
Cool. I had not even heard of that one, so I'll have to look into that.
And then Rune Fencer Ilya is I Kickstarter backed it a while back, and I'm very eagerly anticipating it. The backer updates look awesome. I hope it turns out well. You never know with Kickstarter, but I'm hopeful.
Cool.
And then 3 games that need to be ported to Xbox but haven't been yet. Lone Fungus, Ultros, Cathedral. Come on, devs. Get on it.
2 of those extremely hard games, so you can tell what kind of games Jay likes,
I had never even heard of Cathedral until part 1 because DJ Axis
my
mentioned
gosh.
it.
Cathedral is, I've seen it mentioned as one of the most difficult, games in terms of combat and boss battles and stuff like that. So
That's what DJ
I've
was
seen it
saying.
quoted on the Metroidvania subreddit at least 6 times as a game that people got to the end but couldn't beat the final boss. So I want to play that. Give it to me.
plus your buddy Dead over there, hates that game. So, that just gives it extra
hate
points, right?
him, so
Yeah, I know. There you go.
Yeah, Paul's saying he needs to play the Oris and Hollow Knight. Yep. So, all right. And Rocker Dude, what you got anything on the plate that you're looking forward to playing?
Yeah, this one comes out a month from tomorrow for me, April 23rd. Tales of Kinzara Zhao.
Oh, I'm looking.
That does look good.
Um,
I played the
it-
demo on Steam on stream.
Did
And I
you?
liked it.
Can you confirm it's Metroidvania? It looks like one.
It felt like a clone of
Prince
Prince
Persia.
of Persia.
Yeah, it looks like Prince
I
Persia.
didn't get any movement upgrades, just like Prince of Persia in the demo, but it felt great. I liked it. I'm looking forward to playing that one.
Yeah, that's top of my list right now.
Cool.
Don't you have about 60 games that you've started that you are looking forward to playing?
Oh, that's probably like 80, 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need to play those though.
He's got to keep diving. Just keep diving. You know.
Just keep diving. All right, and then Icefire, what do you got that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm
playing?
surprised. At least one of these didn't get mentioned yet. So Silk Song, that's out there.
That's vaporware.
Hopefully
Yeah.
soon. No,
I
don't
did
say
mention
that.
it.
Don't say that. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Tread
good.
did mention
So
it.
Yeah.
good. Okay, good. So that one obviously, like when that comes out, that's going to be top of my list. Another one which Jay, I know you and I were both waiting for it to come, and then that one, seems like it could be vaporware. I'm still hoping it comes to the Xbox. Is Tevi.
Oh,
So
yeah.
again, right? So
They-
that's they did say May. I think they said, alongside the
Yeah.
physical release of the game in May. So it's supposed to come out then. It was supposed to come out in February. Jay and I were waiting around for it. It never dropped. And then the
Seems
devs
like
came
the
out a few days
publisher
later.
screwed it up really bad.
Somebody dropped the ball there. So
This is Tevi, Tevi.
Yeah.
that's right. Yep. So it's the one, again, it's a very strange looking game. So be prepared for that. I believe there's a lot of bunnies, a lot of
Yeah.
scantily
I like
clad
bunnies.
women. Scantily
I like
clad
that too.
women, stuff like see, I'm selling Shred on it, So
They're not
but,
as
yeah,
scantily clad as
it-
the previous game, I believe.
yeah, so Rabby Ribby, right? So yeah,
It-
so
I've heard-
Rabby Ribby
It's
was
a
an
self-titled
earlier,
bullet hell Metroidvania.
Yeah,
Oh,
so a very
I'm not a
unique-
big fan of bullet
very,
hells.
very unique game.
it's a very unique game. I am not a big fan of Bullet Hells, but this one gets such love in the community, that I'm just fascinated to try it. I've heard it's just a really great, Metroidvania. It's a large game, got a large map, to explore different types of game modes that you can try, to play it in different ways. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one when that comes out. So
cool. Yeah, it's a good list of
Yeah.
games. All right. Well, that wraps it up for us. So I know, a lot of the panel here isn't really like on the internet in this manner typically, so you might not have anything to plug or whatever. But if you got anything, go ahead. If you've got any streams or anything or podcasts or whatever, go for it. So Icefire, you got anything up you want to plug? Or
I'm
anything to
gonna
say?
steal from Corey and say, like obviously all of us are from, like myself, Rocker and Jay Huns and Neo. Obviously, you're in there with us, right? We're all part of the AH101 community, which again, Rocker and some others, right, had started. It's a podcast, so I would definitely recommend that people give it a listen. They do a great job. But we also just have a great Discord with a lot of different gamers of all types there, and just a lot of fun people. I feel like Corey and others did a great job of keeping the rabble out, so to speak, and just letting people in and to have fun and talk about the games they like. So definitely recommend people give that a look.
Yeah, if you are interested, because we are an Xbox community, so that might turn some people off. But if you do play Xbox at all, come join it. I put the link in the stream description already to the AH101 Discord. We'd love to have you. We're a great group of people. We like talking about games. And if you like Metroidvanias, come join the Vayner channel. So,
yep.
Cool. All right. And Rocker Dude, you got anything coming up that you want to plug?
I do not. I wasn't going to plug anything. I'm good.
All right. And Jayhan, you got anything you want to mention?
I don't really stream at all, but gaming is not just a hobby for me. It's also part of my career. So if you're considering buying a gaming peripheral, consider SteelSeries. Help pay my salary.
Oh, okay.
That's cool.
Cool. Yeah, I know that Steel Series has got a pretty good reputation. I don't have any of their stuff myself. That little white one
Right
behind
there.
you is Steel Series.
Yep.
Cool.
All of these are Steel Series.
Ah,
Got my
Yeah.
Steel Series.
there you go.
There you go.
All right. Well, next time I'm in the market for something, I'll definitely look at Steel Series.
They make really good stuff.
Cool. All right. And Metal Shred Freak, I put your link in the link to your Twitch channel in the stream description as well. But anything you got coming up that you want to mention?
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah. Well, I usually like I really just do my Twitch streams. It goes. I mean, I stream everywhere, just like Twitch, YouTube, Kick, all those. But my main channel is Twitch. Then I have Odyssey as like my alternative. Like some people that don't like to get on like the standard platform, so they hang out on Odyssey. And so I just got done with Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. So the next couple of weeks, I'm just gonna be taking it easy, playing some. Been playing a lot of Helldivers with friends and spreading democracy across the galaxy and all that good stuff. But I'm gonna be trying to get into more other games that I've been neglecting for a bit that I want to play that are just kind of not story mode ones. So I'm gonna be playing like some Helldivers, some Hunt Showdown, Diablo. That's kind of what I want to play for maybe the next 2 weeks to about a month, and then I'm gonna go back to Fire Emblem and start playing Radiant Dawn for the first time, which I have not played yet. So that was kind of another reason for playing Path of Radiance previously, because they're one right after the other. So I'm gonna be doing that, and it's really just it's not like pro tier gameplay or nothing. It's more of a hangout. We got some cool people in the chat. We're just hanging out, talking smack, and kind of like what you were saying earlier about keeping out the riffraff. Because like if you follow me on Twitter, you probably know that I can get a little tismy, and there's a lot of people that don't really vibe very well. They kind of don't they don't hang out with us. We only get the cool ones. So there you go.
Cool.
And then other than that, I mean, you follow me. You follow me on Twitter. It's at Metal Shred Freak, and like you'll see, I also have my links to. I've been recently trying to see if I can make merch and stuff like that, and one of the favorites have been the Janny Tears drinkware that a lot of people have liked. And then just today, I uploaded another one that says "Pure Effing Metal," but it's spelled out. It just not. We're keeping it clean here, but but I actually just put that one up this afternoon, so you guys can check that out too. See, it's through Spring Tea, and I think that's pretty much all I got. I don't have anything huge coming that I can think of.
Cool.
And if it turns out that I'm forgetting something, I will let you get I'll let you guys know. I'll put it on Discord and Twitter and all that. So
awesome. All right, and so yeah, so. Jason and I had this idea for top 5. So we kind of, so far it's just been on my channel, but we're building his channel because he wants to do topics. Like I often say, basically everything on my channel is all video game related, but he wants to do stuff that's not video game related. So he's going to be I'll let him tell us about it.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be our next top 5 because we don't have one scheduled for anything gaming yet. So we're going to be getting on that one. So just keep following on socials. We will let you know what the for sure gaming top 5 will be. But I know the next top 5 will be just strictly on my channel. That is going to be the top 5 WrestleMania matches to get everybody ready for WrestleMania next or in 2 weeks from now. So April 4th is going to be the date. And we're going to have that starting at 7 Pacific and 9 Central, just because Central is my time and Pacific are going to be my guest time. So that's how my math has been working right now. But yeah. Next top 5 will be on mine, and we'll have that on April 4th. And then by that time, we should have our next top 5 ready and scheduled for the next topic. Probably that's going to be on Nerdinia's channel.
Yeah, I'm not big on wrestling, so
I was going to say, you should promote it in the AH 101. I know a few people in there that, L and some others that are big into it. They'd be interested in that, I'm sure.
Was Undertaker Mankind a WrestleMania, or was that a different event?
That was a different event. The one, are you talking about the Hell in the Cell one?
Of course.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, that was on a WrestleMania. But yes, yeah. I mean, it's been funny. People, the guests that have been on my show, they're like, "Oh, I forgot that was on a WrestleMania match." I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that are your favorite that aren't Mania matches. So it's going to be interesting to see what everybody's going to come up with and everything like that. So
yeah, he asked me to be on. I'm like, I don't know anything about wrestling, so I wouldn't be able to help you there. So, but yeah. So, and then for me, I will be on Derby Wormy's channel tomorrow at 8 Pacific, and I have no idea what kind of shenanigans we're going to get into. It's probably
That's
going
the
to be pretty
best,
nuts.
ain't it?
And then on Saturday at my usual 11:30 Pacific is going to be the next episode of Party Chat, where Colts Carl is going to be the guest host. And I just realized I hadn't gotten the topics figured out yet, so I will get those to you probably within the next couple hours. We'll be talking about fun video game topics like hardest boss you ever beat, or what game have you beaten the most time, fun stuff like that. And then speaking of Achievement Hunting 101, I'm scheduled to be on the not next week's episode, but the one after on April 2nd, unless that changes. So that'll be my debut to the main segment of the podcast, because normally I just do the Metroidvania roundups every month. But that'll be my first time being on the panel. So
Nice.
awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining me. That was great. I loved having you guys on. You guys were awesome, and getting to hear all of your guys' top fives, and getting this to be the very first part 2, and adding to our existing list. That was fun. So thank you all for joining me. Appreciate you guys hanging on, especially it's kind of late for some of you guys, I know. So I'll let
Going right to bed.
I'll let you guys get to bed. And for most of you guys, I'll see you in the Discord. But for everyone else, thank you for joining. Everyone who joined in chat, appreciate you guys as always. As always, if you have any topics you want to suggest for a future top 5, hit me up on Twitter or Discord. And if you want to be on that panel, you're welcome. And the other thing I forgot to mention is, typically Thursday nights I do an open mic, and I usually have a guest on, just talk open into video games. So if anyone wants to come on and just talk video games with me with nothing planned, let me know and we'll make it happen. That's open call to everyone.
And the same thing, if you see me, same thing on Twitter, Discord, if you see me too, and there's any lists, don't be afraid to mention me as well. We do have some ideas planned out, but again, obviously the guests is what makes the show run, and we again appreciate all the guests that go on the show. But yeah, whatever you guys want to hear and see for this top 5, we want to make it for you guys as well. So we appreciate everybody in chat and watch us.
What was that, Jay?
Puzzle games.
You know what? I think I might have written that down, but I'll double check my list.
I think it's on my list too. I at least have puzzle games, best puzzle game music as well, because I'm a huge music guy when it comes to games, and I do have puzzle games, and I think I have puzzle games music in puzzle games.
You know what? I did
Dr.
make
Mario.
Go on.
I had puzzle for another thing that I'm doing, but I didn't have it for top 5, but I just added it. So that's a good pick. So, all right. Well, that will do it for episode 1.1. Really, the fourth episode.
It's episode 4, top
Episode
5,
4,
Metroidvanias,
top
part
5.
2, the return. Come on, we got this.
Super Mega Ultra Edition XP
Yeah,
Omega.
Samus Returns part 2 again. Yeah.
It's actually episode pi. It's 3.14. Blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
So that'll do it for this episode. Thank you everyone for joining us. Had a great time, and we will see you all later, everyone. And in the meantime, game on.